truth was masked by golden curtains. Even in now, we're shattering the silence. Feel the power. Revelations on the rise. From the shadows, light emerges, breaking through the veils of dark. 0 points and gravities that converge, yeah. Guiding voices, revelation start. Ancient whispers call. They're begging us to open our eyes. We stand tall, defying all their lies. Even in now, we're shattering the silence. Feel the power. Revelations on the rise. Forbidden knowledge we dare to see, unveiling secrets, setting minds free. In this epic we play our part with fearless hearts. And in now, we're shattering the silence. Feel the power. Revelations on the rise.
Feel the pulse, divine sensation. Everyone needs just a little foundation. Feel the pulse, divine sensation. Everyone needs just a little salvation. In the glorious starry sky. Majestic moments in cosmic flight, holding on to the stars of starlight. There's a light within the dark waves, guided by echoes of ancient ways. Unify our reflection, with everything there's a connection. Feel the pulse, divine sensation. Everyone feels the goodness of our invitation. There's a light within the dark waves, guided by echoes of ancient ways. Unify our reflection, with every beat there's a connection. Feel the pulse, divine sensation.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas. Thank you for tuning in to this very special Christmas live stream for you guys. We are going to get started here in a few seconds. What I'm going to be doing is hooking up the Christmas tree to the Mark I coil and Lightning Thief, and we're going to be powering that, and that's going to be in the background while I go over our updates. So today, specifically, I'm going to be going over a two-part update. The first part will be my personal citizens' State of the Union address, which will cover a lot of controversial topics that the mainstream is too afraid to address. Some very important topics regarding the future of this country. So if you're within the working class, I highly suggest you pay attention to this economic update. And after that first part, we're going to go over the coil updates for all the research that I've been doing thus far with the ABHA and Rodin coils. And we're going to just summarize all that in the second part. So let's jump into the Christmas tree setup. We're going to connect it here shortly in a few seconds. As you'll see, there's a battery, a 12-volt battery at the bottom, 20 amp hour. And then we have the Mark I on the left and the Lightning Thief right in front of it. And the Christmas tree is a multicolored RGB LED. Hey, what's going on, Mike? How you guys doing? So for this evening, I'm going to load up my own personal rendition of Carol of the Bells. I like to listen to this in the Christmas season. I made it for a reason because it makes me happy when I listen to it, and I hope it makes you happy too. I made this about 10 years ago on my keyboard. Get ready to go beyond the realms of conventional Christmas here on Beneficence TV. All right, ignore that next track. That was my rendition of Sonic the Hedgehog. If you want to hear all that, you can just Google internal electric anomaly, and it will be the first thing that pops up on Reverb Nation. Those are all my throwback tracks from when I was doing music years ago. So with that, Merry Christmas, everybody. I really appreciate you guys for tuning in today for this very special Christmas live stream event. I will be posting the follow along link in a moment. Give me a second to get situated. All right. We're going to go there. Yeah, Reverb Nation's been around for a long time. I've been using, well, I used to use them like years ago. It's more than 10 years ago that I uploaded those tracks, I think. So, and they're still around. They haven't gotten rid of my stuff, which is good. So, yeah, good platform if you're looking to get your music out there and share it with the world. Broad Jam, yeah, there's a lot of other better options out there now, but Reverb Nation was like, back in the day, it was like the only option that I could find, other than like Spotify and some other platforms that I don't mess with. All right. I'm going to pull this up on my second screen. Pull this up on main screen. All right, give me 1 second. Alright, I'm pasting a link for the follow along and chat. Cakewalk is good, yes. That was a really old school program, way back in the day. Alright, so jumping into our Citizens State of the Union address. This is the Christmas update for the year and the social situation of American workers today. So workers around the country prepare to strike as the assassin of the CEO of United Healthcare ramps up union activity around the modern world. So this rocked not just our country, but has implications for the world economy as well. For those of you who are not aware, I believe his name is Luigi Mangione, was a victim, like so many, to the rapacious insurance companies that run the American medical industrial complex. Now, insurance companies that add no value to your healthcare service, by the way. In fact, these insurance companies act as a mafia-style middleman that actively get in between you and your doctor. So what does this translate into? So this actually translates into approximately 68,000 working class Americans that die every year due to lack of basic access to healthcare services that every other modern industrialized nation provides to their citizens universally. We are the only exception in that realm. Every single one, except the richest country, us. Now, this is the death of the American dream, personified in a very literal way. And it's a little obvious how hard we've been conned into thinking the American dream is still alive. Shoving the veils of dominance down our throats in the form of commercialized propaganda. This country is slowly crumbling into a third world. A world where we have a vast seas of the extremely poor, while we have tiny spatters of super rich that exist in juxtaposition. Now picture a mega city one from Judge Dredd. Inside the walls, a cursed city, stretching from Boston to Washington, D.C., an unbroken concrete landscape. 800 million people living in the ruin of the old world, in the megastructures of the new one. Convulsing, choking, breaking under its own weight. Citizens in fear of the street, the gun, the gang. The rich wall themselves up to protect themselves from the chaos of a fallen society. Now let's look at the actual situation that's going on in America. The middle class of this country is almost depleted, leaving behind a sharp dichotomy of only super rich and super poor, with very little opportunity for positive economic mobility, meaning transferring from poor to wealthy. Nearly 60% of this country is living paycheck to paycheck and would go bankrupt if they had an unexpected expense of $400. Want some more damning statistics? Numbers don't lie, so listen up. Approximately 66.5% of bankruptcies in the United States are tied to medical issues, either due to high cost of care or time out of work. This is a uniquely American phenomenon among industrialized nations. The source of this is American Journal of Public Health. The U.S. spends nearly $12,914 per capita annually on healthcare, more than any other developed nation, yet ranks 36th in global life expectancy. Remember, life expectancy in this country was going up for a while, but now for the first time in centuries, it's going down. All right, now this means we pay the most for our healthcare and get the least. How can you not see that we've been conned by business owners? It's so obvious. Around 23% of insured Americans are considered underinsured, meaning that their out-of-pocket costs are so high, they avoid seeking care, leading to worse health outcomes and more cost on our economy. Because remember, when you delay costs for a minor incident or a minor health concern that turns into a big, expensive one later down the line, well, you could have avoided it in the first place, but most people are avoiding seeking preliminary care. Over 27 million Americans remain uninsured. Many delay seeking care due to fear of medical bills, leading to treatable conditions becoming fatal. The U.S. accounts for 45% of the global pharmaceutical revenues, with drug prices averaging 250% higher than in peer nations. The healthcare industry functions as a wealth extraction machine rather than a public service. Now remember, we have insulin refugees traveling from America to Canada to get their insulin at a decent cost because it's simply too expensive to buy it here, and it's made here. It's cheaper to buy it when it was after it was made here and then sold after a markup in Canada to just buy it here straight up. We are being conned. This is a scam, and Americans need to wake up to the reality that we need to fight for our health in this situation. There are 68,000 people who die a year because they lack basic access to healthcare services that the rest of the modern industrialized world has. Okay? This is damning. Okay? This is an extreme failure of our economy. Let's watch this clip that I have.
Tensions are rising as workers at major corporations like Amazon and Starbucks walk off the job during the busy holiday season. Amazon
What's up,
workers
Mr.
are
Lanius?
striking at
How you
several
doing?
U.S. facilities. They are seeking better contracts and working conditions. Starbucks workers are also on strike, protesting slow contract negotiations and what they call unfair labor practices. The union is demanding better wages and a resolution to legal issues, while
Remember, a lady died on the floor of an Amazon warehouse, and because the working conditions are so strict and stringent, nobody had the time, could waste the time or points off of their system, otherwise they get fired, to go check on this lady who was laying on the floor for about 2 hours before somebody was able to actually get the time to call 911. And then they found out she was lying dead on the floor for a few hours. And this is extremely concerning. If nobody's concerned about this, like, I don't need my packages that fast where we're going to be killing people on the warehouse floor. Come on, people. Come on. We could still get our packages fast and fight for these workers.
Starbucks claims the union.
Specifically, later on in this, I'm going to propose a solution, very simple solution, that is a one-day boycott of Amazon. And if we all do this one day out of the month in unison, we can actually make a difference.
Demands are unsustainable. The strikes have spread across multiple cities, including New York, Atlanta, and San Francisco, with workers picketing outside Amazon facilities. The Teamsters are calling this
Not
the
doing
largest
this for no
ever
reason,
strike
guys.
against Amazon, although the company insists it will not affect operations. Starbucks workers in Los Angeles and other cities have also joined the picket lines. They're demanding a fair contract and are protesting the coffee giant's alleged stalling tactics. Amazon has faced repeated accusations of anti-union tactics, with the National Labor Relations Board ordering multiple union elections due to alleged interference. The company is also challenging the constitutionality of the NLRB in federal court. The Starbucks strike is expanding, with the union planning to escalate walkouts through Christmas Eve, potentially impacting hundreds of stores. The company
Imagine that. Imagine arguing that unions, which are injecting a little bit of democracy where we don't have any in the workplace, right? Imagine that arguing democracy within the workplace is unconstitutional. Come on, get out of here. Stop fooling us, or trying to fool us.
company has acknowledged disruptions,
You can fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. Come on.
but claims minimal impact on operations. The timing of these strikes is no accident. They are happening during the busiest time of year for these companies. This is a strategic move by the unions, hoping to gain leverage and force the companies to the bargaining table. The unions are pushing to secure contracts before a potential shift in the political landscape, fearing a less union-friendly National Labor Relations Board under a new administration, according to the Times of India. These strikes come amid a year of significant labor wins for unions in various sectors. This has created momentum for organized labor and is fueling the current labor actions.
This isn't just fueling labor actions in this country, by the way. This has struck up union activity around the world. In Germany and France specifically, we have union activity ramping up because of this CEO's assassination. You know, this is, and again, I'm not condoning violence. I never condone violence, but this is a red flag. And people who don't listen to the Marxian analysis that I put forth won't understand why this is happening. No, this is happening for a very specific reason, and I'm not surprised it's happening. It's only going to get worse from here if we don't fix the root of the problem. All right, so the deadly cost of inaccessibility, 68,000 people annual, 68,000 annual deaths, 68,000 Americans, working class citizens of America die every year because they don't have access to health care. They can't afford or access basic health care. That is equivalent to a fully loaded Boeing 737 crashing every single day, killing everyone on board. Imagine the outcry if this were due to plane crashes, but because these deaths are a result of systemic neglect, they're normalized as collateral damage of capitalism, okay? The underlying causes: lack of insurance. Over 27 million Americans remain uninsured. Many delay seeking care due to fear of medical bills, leading to treatable conditions becoming fatal. We discussed this earlier. Rationing medications. This is very important. If you're on insulin, 1 out of 5 Americans report skipping prescriptions due to cost. Imagine being on an antipsychotic and having concealed weapons license. That's a dangerous combination if you're rationing your medication. And antipsychotics can be very expensive. Diabetic patients die because they can't afford insulin, which costs 10 times more in the U.S. than in other countries. Preventable conditions. Research shows that the majority of these deaths stem from treatable illnesses like heart disease, diabetes, and infections. Simple infections, conditions that other nations address through universal health care systems. Now, we need to get out of our American bubble here and start looking at what other countries have been doing for years. And nobody has argued. In fact, it would be political suicide for somebody to run on the argument of dismantling one of these countries' universal health care programs. Everybody loves it because it works. We're stuck in this bubble here because we're fed this propaganda that, oh, we have freedom of choice here with our health care and blah, blah, blah. We don't have waiting, and that's all a lie. There's waiting no matter what. It's called prioritizing health care, right? If you have a severe fatal condition that you're going to die in the next few minutes, obviously you're going to get priority over someone who needs an x-ray for a broken rib or something. Come on. That's just basic common sense. The idea that we don't have wait times here is ridiculous. I myself had to wait 3 months for a doctor's appointment with Medicare. So this is a problem, And in the states that do have Medicare programs, again, they are better than nothing. But at the same time, they're severely underinsuring you, right? They're severely underperforming the duty and service that they're supposed to provide you in terms of providing adequate health care. Global comparison, okay? The American failure. This is our failure, our biggest failure in my opinion. The U.S. spends 17.8% of its GDP on healthcare, far more than any other country, yet its citizens experience worse outcomes than any of those countries. It's ranked 36 out of all those nations. Nations like the UK, Canada, Germany, all which have universal systems, have 0 deaths attributed to lack of access. A 2020 Yale study estimated that switching to a universal healthcare system would save $450 billion annually while preventing those 68,000 deaths. Again, the insurance companies add no value to your service. They just extract wealth, right? They're just wealth extraction companies. They don't add any. They don't provide any service. They don't add any quality to your service. They don't do anything. But maximize profit by denying coverage. That's how they work. They maximize their profit by denying your coverage, despite what your doctor says or recommends. And we've seen this out of studies. 1 out of 3, a third, or 3 out of 10, whatever, a third of people insured by United Healthcare were denied. This is a huge problem, okay? And specifically when you cut out that middleman, yeah, of course you're going to save money. They're extracting all the wealth there. They're actually putting a hindrance on the system by making a situation where people have to delay their health care, which often adds more strain to the system. Because again, a fatal condition is often more expensive to treat, right? So, and the administration cost, you can save, I think the estimate was $700 million annually just on administration costs. And that's like because hospitals have to hire someone to figure out, oh, are you in service? Are you out of service? Do you qualify for this insurance? Do you qualify for that insurance? Is this test covered? Is that test covered? This is all convoluted crap. When you make a system more complicated and convoluted than it needs to be, you have to be immediately suspicious that there's a scam going on. And that's my advice to you in any situation. If a situation or a circumstance that you're facing seems more convoluted or complicated than it needs to be, it usually is a sign that it's a con or a scam of some sort. Somebody's making money off your ass. The role of insurance companies, okay? The insurance companies act as a parasitic intermediaries, adding no value, but siphoning off $1.25 trillion annually from the healthcare system in administrative costs and profits. These entities deny care through pre-existing condition loopholes or bureaucratic hurdles, inflate cost by negotiating higher rates with providers while passing the burden to patients, spend billions on lobbying to block reforms like Medicare for All, ensuring their survival at the cost of human lives. Okay, the human toll. Remember, 68,000 people die every year because of this nonsense. They're not just numbers. They're mothers, fathers, children's, and friends. For every one of them, there's a family torn apart. Behind the staggering statistics, stories like Alex Smith, a 26-year-old who aged out of his parents' insurance and began rationing his insulin. He died just weeks later from diabetic ketoacidosis. And then there's Mary Allen, a mother of 3 who postponed a cancer screening due to cost, only to be diagnosed with late-stage cancer when it was too late to treat. These aren't just numbers, ladies and gentlemen. These are people with families, and they're being affected. And if you can't see that Luigi was a symptom of this larger capitalist concern, then you need to open your eyes, and as they say from the Matrix, you need to wake the fuck up, okay? You can either take the blue pill and go on sleeping and pretending that we're not living in a dystopian reality and we're not being tricked into thinking that we're the greatest nation ever and we have freedom of choice in our healthcare, so therefore it is the best. No. You need to take the fucking red pill, okay, and open your goddamn eyes. The system of manufactured scarcity. This isn't a fucking accident. It's by design. The U.S. healthcare system prioritizes profits over lives, creating artificial scarcity to drive up prices. The hospital consolidation creates regional monopolies, inflating costs by 12% to 25% in some cases. Pharmaceutical companies block competition through patent abuse, keeping drug prices astronomical. The working poor are kept in a state of precarity where they're too sick to resist, too desperate to demand change. But there is a threshold, ladies and gentlemen, as we've seen throughout history. That threshold has red flags. And this Luigi assassination incident, whatever you call it, is a giant red flag. All right? Now, we move on to real wages, and this is another damning statistic. Okay, let's look at real wages for a minute. The country's real wage is the average wage adjusted for price inflation we all experience. Remember, if prices go up an average of 8% that year and you get a 5% raise, then you didn't really get a raise, did you? You accepted a pay decrease of 3%. Due to the fact that the amount of goods and services that same money could buy last year buys a lower amount of goods and services this year but compared to that lower inflation rate. This is because that inflation drives the dollar value down. Okay? Real wages and productivity. Since the 1970s, worker productivity in the U.S. has increased by 61%, yet real wages have only grown by 17%. The wealth generated by workers is overwhelmingly absorbed by the capitalist class, the business owner class. And I'm not talking about the small business owner who's trying to, make his way. I love small business owners. I'm talking about the giant monopolies like Apple, Disney, Microsoft. Okay? CEO to pay CEO to worker pay gap. In 2022, the average S&P 500 CEO earned 399 times the average worker's pay. This is up from 58 times the average worker pay in 1989. Okay? The capitalist elite enrich themselves at the expense of workers. Another big problem is union suppression. Union membership in the U.S. has declined to 10.1%, the lowest level since the Great Depression. This is another red flag, okay? Because unions are starting to become on the rise again, and this is not another coincidence. If you pay attention, these are indicators of what is happening to our country. Okay, due to relentless corporate lobbying and anti-labor policies, okay, your $5 you donated to Barack Obama isn't going to compare to the thousands or millions that a big corporation is going to donate to him to talk a big game about workers' rights, but then, do little to actually support the policy. And the same goes for the right, even actually more so on the right. The right likes to pretend they're for workers' rights while actively voting for workers' policy, voting down workers' rights, like suppressing unions. And we'll go into the statistics on Republicans and their bad voters' record on workers' rights in a little bit. But that said, unionized workers earn 11.2% more on average and have better benefits. This isn't an accident. You're injecting a little bit of democracy where you have authoritarian system, okay? You have an authoritarian hierarchy of power at your workplace. You have no power there. You go to work and you do what you're told. You think you have any say there? You are just a worker, okay? You are a number to them. You are nothing. Unless you're the CEO or on the board, you are nothing. You are a means to an end. But if you have a little bit of democracy, if you all gather up and collectively bargain as your American, God-given American right to collectively bargain, you, on average, will earn 11.2% more than your ununionized workers. Okay? We're going to go into another clip by Richard Wolff on the real wage here.
What happened to wages between the
Tell us.
1960s and today? The answer is they went nowhere. It's really important to understand that if you adjust the wages Americans got for the prices they have to pay to get what economists call the real wage, what you can afford to buy with the wages you get, the real wage in this country has stagnated for 50 years. It has gone nowhere. When you adjust for prices, the average wage in the United States today is very little different from what it was, say, in 1978. What happened?
So this is very important. And so how did we keep up our living conditions, our material conditions, right? If our real wages isn't keeping up for 50 years, the argument is, well, how can we live as Americans with such luxury? Okay, I'll tell you exactly how. We substituted what our business owners should have been giving us in real wage. We substituted that raise in wage for overtime and debt. Okay, and then I compare this. It's analogous to a frog boiling in a pot of heating water. Okay, we're slowly, generation after generation, getting worse and worse. As real wages stagnate, we can buy less and less generation after generation. Okay, that's why we have this disconnect between the older generations. They grew up in a different time where your money, your dollar value was a lot more compared to your wage. Okay, your wage was a little bit better. It got you a little bit farther. Right? You had to work a little bit less. You had to borrow a little bit less. Now we're further along down the line, okay? And people need to wake up, okay? There are generations that are being born now that have not seen any benefit of the capitalist economic system where we have a small group in charge of the business while the mass of workers have to suffer the consequences or get the boot. They have no democracy in the workplace. We pretend we are a nation that fetishizes democracy, but we don't have any democracy where it really counts. The place that you spend the most time, the place that you spend the best hours of the day, there's a reason why we have a happy hour. And there is a reason why that happy hour is at the end of the day. Because that happy hour signifies that the hours preceding it were not happy.
Turns out Disneyland isn't the only company that's catching heat for mistreating its workers. So over the weekend, a staff report by the Senate Labor Committee, led by, of course, Bernie Sanders, alleged that Amazon was aware that its high factory quotas were.
Well, Mike, regardless of what China's specifically doing, and I'm not advocating what China's doing, I'm just saying and pointing out the fact regarding the EV cars is that Europe uses mostly BYD cars, electric vehicles. Most of the modern industrialized nations outside of America use BYD because they're cheap and they're affordable and they work. They're not like Tesla. And the reason why BYD isn't known here in America is because we have Biden slapped 100% tariff on electric vehicles from China. So Americans obviously don't know the better solution, the cheaper solution that could actually save them money in the long run. No, they're forced to fiddle with expensive, Tesla vehicles that break down half the time or kill their drivers because they pretend they have self-driving features because the CEO is a jackass who likes to boast features that aren't there.
Actually leading to injuries among their workers. And so internal company documents collected by Sanders's investigators show that Amazon health and safety personnel recommended relaxing enforcement of the production quotas to lower injury rates, but that senior executives.
Pay attention to this name, Bernie Sanders. You'll see him a lot fighting for your workers' rights. If you don't see people fighting for your rights in Congress, then they are fighting for the rights of corporations, okay? And that is 99% of our Congress. Remember, we have the best Congress that money can pay for, okay? Your $5 doesn't compare to the lobbyist money. It just doesn't. The politicians are going to be swayed and controlled by that larger corporate donor money, okay? Those PAC money. It's basically illegal bribes. So pay attention who's fighting for your workers' rights in Congress, because it isn't Trump. It isn't anybody on the right. It isn't anybody on the mainstream Democratic Party left, so-called left. There are centrists to me. They're just center left in reality if you look at the political compass. But regardless, I digress. They're not fighting. Biden, might have a good policy every now and then. But in the long run, he is still pro-capitalist. And he still believes that the system doesn't have its flaws. Okay? We are pretending that the system doesn't have its flaws here. And when you pretend that a system doesn't have its flaws, you're left with inadequate solutions. Yeah, sure, you can chug along a little bit, but your engine's going to chug out eventually. And that's what's happening now. We're choking out the engine of our economy. Okay, again, if you go back to my social situation episode 2, the healthy flow of an economy is analogous to the healthy flow of a circulatory system. Money needs to be passing from one hand to the next as fast as possible. Yeah, you can have some savings in the bank. That's fine. But what we have now are a few people with massive amounts of money hoarded in bank accounts offshore that are not subjected to taxation or anything that could benefit actual people who are struggling. Okay? Remember, the purpose of taxes is to provide services for everybody so that everybody can benefit in Americans' opportunities.
Executives rejected the recommendations, apparently because they worried about the effect on the company's performance, of course. So the quotas are incredibly difficult to meet, very demanding. And by the way, it's not just in factories. So my husband delivered Amazon packages for a brief period of time after he lost his job due to COVID. And the quotas are insane. I mean, like the amount of boxes that you have to deliver. And he's young, he's healthy, so he was able to meet that quota. And some days he would try to meet the quota quickly enough to take on some of the packages for his coworkers. But that's what it's like. There are people who are not young and healthy, like aren't as mobile as someone like my husband. And so it's
Another good point, because I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm noticing a lot more older generation working instead of retiring. Specifically, I see a lot of older folks who should be in the retirement age struggling to pay their bills with a dead-end job at, the dollar store, because the retirement and Social Security doesn't go as far as it did before. We're not keeping up with our social safety nets. We're not providing enough funding to these these programs that are inadequately funded. Okay, and we have an older generation that has to rely on working in their older years instead of enjoying retirement, and that's the majority of America. There might be a few of you out there who actually have enjoyed in retirement, or enjoyed it at an early age, but the vast majority of us are not in that circumstance, and it's another red flag that the economy is not withstanding. It is a house of cards,
It's a practice across the board over at Amazon. It's the factories, it's the delivery workers, it's brutal. So this report centers on 3 internal studies. The first was Project Elderwand, which is a fun name. So it found that after workers picked around 216 items per hour throughout a 10-hour shift, injury rates understandably spiked. And so it also found that Amazon workers usually pick around 266 items per hour, well over that limit. And so then there's a second study, Project Soteria. And so the company investigated.
Let me just pause for a second, because I was a chat agent, and a chat agent's job, or at least my job as a chat agent, was analogous to a call center. Okay, only imagine taking multiple calls at once. Yes, we had to take 4 chats at once, sometimes even more, and we had a script, and we had to be fast, and we had like 60 seconds to reply, here, and 2 minutes to reply there, and we had to collect leads, and we had to fill out forms in very strenuous detail, and it was basically non-stop typing with maybe 10-minute break here, and then a 10-minute break at the end of your shift. Or I'm sorry, a 30-minute break at the end of your shift. So it was basically nonstop typing, and all of the senior staff that was left complained of carpal tunnel or very serious injuries to the wrists. This company had no regard to the health and safety of their employees. This company that I was working for. And the putting quotas on your employees like that, even if it's just typing, is disastrous, and it's absolutely disgusting. If you as the CEO wouldn't do it yourself, why the hell would you have your employees do it? If it's not safe for you, why is it safe for them? You can go F yourself, Brad Title, piece of shit.
Investigators found that the faster employees worked, the more those employees were likely to get injured. And the study recommended that the workers should get more time off work and longer face discipline for missing productivity, no longer face discipline for missing productivity targets. Good luck with that. Okay, but the report also found that Amazon executives just ignored these findings, didn't care, and just kept going along with what they had been doing. The Senate Labor Committee staff found evidence suggesting that executives were concerned that carrying out the recommendations could lower productivity at Amazon's warehouse or warehouses or hurt the customer experience. However, the report also cites a third study that was done by the company itself. Okay, so in it, Amazon researchers found that there is no link between how fast workers performed their duties and how frequently they get injured. Oh, shocking. I'm sure there's no bias in this study. And Amazon claims this third study basically debunked the previous studies, but I'm not personally buying that at all. So I'm going to pause and get your comments on this so far, Waz.
This is why Karl Marx is a genius, Anna. Like seriously, and his prediction of like the workers' alienation from
Mhm.
his own work and where this was all going. Like, just think about this, guys. Like, these workers are incurring injuries of bodily harm
Yep.
so that we can get bonbons and antlers for Christmas within 2 days.
Yep.
That's why these people are getting hurt. Just think about the absurdity of that. It's so that these people are getting hurt in service of you getting your freaking Twinkies in 2 days instead of 4.
Yep.
Because you couldn't walk your ass to the Ralphs or whatever the hell it is. It's absurd. It's an insane system of doing things. Like the idea that workers should be killing themselves to achieve that end. It's nasty and it's disgusting. And secondly, what I would say is that like Amazon won, they got the customer acquisition. I was up there, I was looking at something to get, like Prime was like, yo, we'll get it to you in 8 days. And it's like everybody's kind of accepted that this whole 2-day thing is over. Can we stop killing these people
Yeah,
in
for
the
real. Yeah.
process? Like, I get it. People thought it was so cool because everybody thinks of themselves as the customer first. It's like, oh my God, they getting this stuff in here in 2 days? Wow, this is crazy. I could understand, it's quite grotesque, but people be like, no, let's not disturb the system that does this really cool thing that we've never seen happen before. That's over, y'all. Amazon is basically overtaking Google, whoever, when it comes to like, you guys want to get a crib or a stroller or, a spatula. You just type it into Amazon. You don't even go to Google anymore. People just literally just go to Amazon to get all of these goods. And
Yeah.
so like, yo, it's fine, bro. You guys won that damn war. Please give the people a break with this freaking.
Let's not forget how giants like Amazon monopolize. All right, they have the money to take small businesses out or smaller businesses that are actually doing good locally, right? And we know that small businesses affect local economies. They stimulate local economies, obviously, because they provide the local tax revenue for those local economies to be stimulated, the local wages for those economies to be stimulated. Okay, so when we have a situation where a giant monopoly is undercutting the diaper industry, which it actually did, selling diapers for way cheaper because they could afford the loss in profits, just to move out the largest diaper supplier online and monopolize yet another sector of the market, proving that the market isn't free, not under capitalism. If you want a free market, you're going to have to choose a different economy, baby. Capitalism is not a free market system. It is the opposite of free. It couldn't be more centralized.
Damn near slavery up there, man. It's nasty.
Well, they are not getting the message because they have their fiduciary obligation to their shareholders. And so I'm going to go to the very last graphic here, because when Amazon workers do get injured as a result of these quotas, they even get steered away from getting proper care. I mean, this is the definition of human capital, right? Just easy to dispense of. Who cares? Like, they're just the bodies we need to do this job. And if they get injured and they're unable to recover, we'll just replace them with someone else. But
expendable.
Sanders' report found that Amazon often discouraged workers from seeking medical attention outside their warehouse and sent them to an internal health facility that was not equipped to provide more than first aid, even when they had potentially serious long-term injuries. It's insane. And, you'll hear from libertarians who will argue things like, well, I mean, it's a free market. So if you don't like the way you're being treated by your workplace, go find another job. But we know the precarious nature of the job market, okay? And by the way, this is a criticism of Democrats and Republicans, because when Democrats are in charge, they love to talk about low unemployment rate. Things are so great. Everything is so wonderful. Yeah, but let's take a look at the quality of jobs we're talking about here. Are they full-time jobs? Are they just temporary jobs?
No, because even when Democrats cite the unemployment rate, they're only citing the U3 unemployment rate. They're not citing the U6 unemployment rate, which actually tells you what's going on. It paints the full picture because the U6 unemployment rate includes people who are discouraged from looking for work entirely and people who are underemployed but want full-time employment, can't get it. That's a very important picture, part of the picture, in my opinion. If you ask me, if you're ignoring that data, then you're just biased.
What kind of benefits are we talking about? What kind of pay are we talking about? So like this idea that there's like an abundance of stable, well-paying jobs with benefits out there and people can just pick and choose, that's not really the case. And there was a time, right after the pandemic where we had a very tight.
I'm a prime example of this. I've been applying for jobs for the last 2 to 3 months. I haven't gotten one call back, not even from fast food places. I've been doing deliveries for DoorDash, okay? Somebody of my caliber who should be working in a fucking lab is resorted to the service industry, which I'm proud to work in the service industry. I have my entire life. I love being a part of the working class. But somebody of my caliber being forced to work in a menial service position because the economy is not as good as we want it to be and is not nearly as good as they tell us it is, and that's just pathetic in my experience. There is no American dream left. It is dying. We have people who are graduating from college who can't pay back their impossibly high insurance rates on their loans and can't even get a job in the industry they got a diploma for in the first place. It's a joke, ladies and gentlemen. We live in a glass house, okay? It's a house. Our economy is a house of cards, and we keep pretending that it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and that patching it here or gluing it here is going to fix the very systemic problem that we built our fucking house out of cards.
Labor market, and for the first time in decades, workers actually had a little bit of leverage. That was when we saw like wages rise a little bit. That was when we saw better working conditions. But, I think that there's a very real reason why Congress has no real appetite for things like comprehensive immigration reform, because their corporate donors want the flow of, undocumented immigration in particular into this country, because you can use and abuse those people. They're not going to go to the authorities if they're being abused at work, if they're being underpaid. So it's just something to keep in.
And that is another good point. And it is something that I predict is going to be the catalyst for the actual destruction of this American economy. It will be the catalyst, in my opinion, of the collapse. If we actually end up deporting all of these undocumented immigrants who are working in these, laborious jobs, in the agricultural industry and all that, we are going to have to replace those people with Americans who are going to demand more money, okay? These people don't have the authority to go to the police and say, hey, I just got ripped off. My employer didn't pay me this week. They're undocumented. They're not going to go to the police, you dumbass, okay? They're not going to say anything at all. They're going to shut the hell up. You know why? Because they're undocumented, okay? And we replace these people, we're going to do detriment to our economy, because we're going to have to replace them with somebody, Americans, who are going to demand more money, more benefits. And you know what that's going to do? The capitalists are going to recuperate their loss somehow. They're going to jack up prices again. You think they won't? You think hyperinflation can't come to America? You're dreaming. You're in delusional land if you think that hyperinflation can't happen here. And when I talk about hyperinflation, I mean hyperinflation, the Great Depression era hyperinflation, okay? Where prices were so bad in Germany that they were raising every day. They were doubling every day. You would have to get your wage at the middle of the day just so you can go home during your break, give half your wage to your wife so she can go to the grocery store and buy the milk before it became too expensive for you to buy. Imagine that. That's the situation we're heading in, folks. And we're not doing a goddamn thing to fix it. We're actually making it worse. Tariffs are a tax on imports. You think that a tariff war is going to help us here? You're a fucking idiot, okay? It's going to raise prices. Tariffs are a temporary solution that should be used strategically. If you use them in a tariff war, you're going to raise inflation way beyond what it is now, okay? And you're going to have a situation, we're going to have $25 lattes. You want to pay $25 for a latte? Well, you just voted for it, folks.
In mind, I think both parties should be held responsible for that. I don't think either party is actually going to pursue the comprehensive immigration reform that we need. So,
I mean, yeah, that goes without saying. Just like I understand we get cheap goods, especially in the agriculture business from all these undocumented workers, but it's not an ideal way to run an economy. I'm sorry, like I'm pro immigration as they come. That's just not long term. That's just not an ideal way to run an economy. And what I would say to those libertarians, the conditions that workers find the job market in is not from the invisible hand of the market just working its way. No, fam, it's collusion from the capital class together and in cahoots by pressuring the government to do stuff like right to work and crap like that. Like that's
Exactly. What do you think the military-industrial complex is? What do you think the medical-industrial complex is, right? They are private industries in cahoots with the government, okay? It is what Benito Mussolini described as fascism, only it's New Age fascism. Dr. Greer likes to call it industrial fascism. It is fascism evolved, okay? Industrial fascism.
all they do is rig the rules against workers where, Uber and Amazon and all these people give you like, whoa, these aren't full-time workers. They're independent contractors. I shouldn't have to pay these people a livable wage.
Exactly. I don't have to get paid a livable wage by DoorDash because I'm just a contract worker. Screw my rights, right? We found a loophole, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to exploit these people for as much as we can get from them. You know what I have to say? F you. F you if you can think you can get away with exploiting the workers. You can fool some of the people some of the time. You can't fool all the people all the time. People are waking up. People are starting to wake the fuck up. All right, let's move on to housing costs. All right, this is a crisis of living. All right, rent burden. Nearly 50% of renters in the U.S. are considered cost burdened, meaning they spend over 30% of their income on housing. Remember, most of the other modern industrialized countries like Germany and France and, UK, Norway, Sweden, Canada, yada, 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 they don't spend more than 30% of their goddamn income on housing. Homelessness. On any given night, over 580,000 people are homeless in the U.S. Okay? Remember, 200,000 of those are veterans. That's disgusting. We propagate these young ladies and men to go across seas and die for patriotism, but we can't take care of them when they come back? F you. This is in stark contrast to countries with robust social safety nets like Finland, which has effectively eradicated homelessness. Yep. Or Cuba. Cuba has no homeless people. They have adequate housing or universal housing for everybody. Now, it's not luxurious like we have here in America, but it is something. They don't have their ass out on the street like I could be next month. Wealth inequality. The top 1% of Americans hold 34.9% of this country's total wealth. Think about that for a second. While the bottom 50% hold 2.6%. That's a hugely disgusting gap. This gap continues to grow, okay? 20 people in the entire world hold more wealth than the bottom half of the entire planet. Now, there is no moral or ethical justification you can give me for this scenario right here. Okay? You can take half of those 20 people's wealth, most of them Americans, not all, but some of them. You could take half of their wealth, and they'd still be the wealthiest 20 individuals in the world. Take half their wealth, redistribute it amongst the most poorest people on earth, in the impoverished countries and make a real freaking difference in their lives. There's no moral or ethical justification you can give me to tell me that this isn't the scenario that we need to have, okay? Global comparison and the American decline. Poverty rates. The U.S. has a poverty rate of 11.6%, higher than most OECD countries, despite being the richest nation. Oh, we're the richest, all right, but we have the most empty houses? Child poverty is even more stark at 16.9%, a moral failure of capitalism. We have a huge portion of this country's young children, and I've seen it personally because my ex-girlfriend was a teacher, okay? And I've seen it personally. These children, a lot of them are food insecure, and the only meals they get are at school because they can't afford them at home. And if we're not providing adequate lunches to school, what the hell are we doing with these children? We're killing them. Infrastructure decay. The American Society of Civil Engineers gave U.S. infrastructure a grade of C-, citing crumbling roads, bridges, and water systems, further reflecting the misallocation of national wealth. Education debt. Americans collectively owe over $1.77 trillion in student loans, a burden unique to the U.S. among wealthy nations. This debt hinders economic mobility and entrenches inequality. Again, education debt is something that simply does not exist in other modern industrialized nations. You go to Germany, you go to Canada, you go to Norway, Finland, Sweden. It doesn't matter. You go to almost any of those countries, and they don't know what the heck education debt is. Okay? It is a rare, if not non-occurrence. Okay? You go to Germany, you don't even have to be a freaking citizen of Germany to get free education there. Okay? That's a good deal. They did it without collapsing their economy. Now, let's take a look at the voting records of the two parties. I'm not an advocate of the Democratic Party by any means, but one party clearly has working class priorities, while the other lacks them, but at the same time feigns them, meaning they pretend to. And I'm speaking about the Republicans. Republicans pretend to be on the side of workers, but as you'll see, have a history and clear pattern of voting against workers' rights and for the rights of capitalist business abusers. In this moment, I like to remind all my viewers that if you do not own any capital, meaning anything used to create the means of production or for the means of production, if you don't have any capital, then you're not a capitalist, you're just a worker. You might have been indoctrinated to believe in capitalism as your savior, but in reality, you'd be voting against your own better interest as a worker, voting for a Republican who defends individualist priorities such as tax cuts for the rich business owners instead of tax cuts for the poor working class citizens. Now, imagine that. Go back in your head. Whenever you heard a Republican talk about tax cuts, did he ever for 1 second talk about who he was cutting those taxes for? No, he's not going to admit that those tax cuts are going to be for rich people. The idea is simple. He doesn't want to say it, but the idea is simple. He's going to talk about tax cuts. People are going to assume he's going to talk about tax cuts for them, the working class. He's not. He's talking about tax cuts for rich business owners, Reaganomics, supply-side economics, which is shown not to work. It's a fantasy where you believe that cutting taxes for rich people trickles down the benefit to the working class, when in reality that simply doesn't happen. And quite frankly, I don't want to be pissed on, okay? Opposition to minimum wage increases. Republicans have consistently opposed federal minimum wage increases. Remember, our federal minimum wage hasn't changed but one time in the last 30 years, okay? Meanwhile, China's minimum wage has increased several times, like 6 to 9 times, something like that. Okay, this is why their economy is growing more than ours. They're taking care of their people more than we're taking care of our people. And this is not an advocate for China over America. This is simply what's going on. The material conditions of Chinese citizens are raising above the material conditions of Americans. their money simply gets them more. Okay? They can buy more food with their wage. They can provide more adequate housing. They can have more leisure with their wage. Americans are on overdrive all the time, overworking 2, 3, 4 jobs sometimes even. Oh, you got a side hustle here, you got a side hustle there, you got to grind, pick yourself up by the bootstraps, just a little bit more grinding and you'll succeed. It's a lie, ladies and gentlemen. You can't nickel and dime your way to success. It is impossible. I have been working a full-time job over full-time my entire life, and I have not a goddamn thing to show for it, and I am in the majority, okay? I'm not alone here. Many Americans feel like I do. We feel like we have been cheated out of the American dream, and we really have. A lot of it is due to the stagnation in real wage, okay? The last federal minimum wage hike was in 2009, and a Republican-led effort have blocked multiple proposals since then. If you're wondering why our federal minimum wage, so okay, you can argue, oh well, the states have a higher minimum wage. What are you complaining about? Well, if I'm a federal worker in that state, I don't get the state minimum wage, do I? No, I don't, do I? Dumbass. A 2021 vote on raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, so only 2 Republicans in favor. 2, that's pathetic. Despite overwhelming public support for higher wages amongst workers. Do you want a higher minimum wage? I know I do. I know many people who do. I can count 10 people off the top of my head who would fight tooth and nail for a higher wage right now. Okay? And I'm sure many people who are watching can do the same. You know why? Because the real wage has been stagnant for 50 fucking years. That has consequences. Again, frog. Pot of boiling water. Union busting and anti-labor legislation. Republicans have repeatedly supported right-to-work laws, which weaken unions by allowing workers to benefit from collective bargaining without paying union dues. This is a significant problem. Okay, union dues are how you fund the union. If you have to fight for your raise, okay, say you get fired and you have a union lawyer. Somebody, you get fired for an unjust cause, and you need a union lawyer to protect you. They're cutting costs, and they're firing you and justifying it for some BS reason. But you need your union lawyer. That union lawyer costs money. How are you going to pay for him? But he's there for a reason. He's there to protect your ass when the company throws you out on the street during before Christmas, okay? Because they need to save on their bad decision because they lost a contract, and now it's on you to provide them with the adequate solution, even though it's going to cost you your job, and quite frankly, it could cost you your shelter, your food, and all the implications of that, okay? This is Republican-led efforts to actively suppress workers' rights. It's disgusting. Anybody who doesn't know this hasn't been paying attention, and it's on you. That's on you. If you have voted for Republicans and haven't been doing your homework, then that's on you. And I'm sorry I have to bring this news to you, but it's simply, and again, if you're a business owner, even a small business owner, that's within your prerogative. And it's actually a smart decision in that respect to vote for a Republican because they will be in your favor. But the vast majority of Americans aren't business owners, are they? Okay? And I'm not a business owner either. Not one of any significance, at least. I'm not making any significant money. Moving on to union busting and anti-labor legislation. Republicans have repeatedly supported right-to-work laws, as we discussed. And again, these right-to-work laws have been shown to lower wages and reduce worker protection. Okay? Unions protect workers. There's a reason why unions are popular in dangerous industries like the construction industry. You would not find one damn laborer who argues against the union. The union keeps you safe. The union argues for your working conditions to be safe. If not for them, who's going to argue for you? You go to work, they don't listen to you. You don't have any democracy at work. You don't have a damn decision-making stance in the business. Okay. But if you have a union, collective bargaining power, then you have a little bit of democracy. You have a little bit of power, right? So that makes sense. Cause, effect. right? It makes sense. It's logical. You have a union, obviously you're going to have better working conditions and better wages. That's what they're there for. All right, protecting the right to organize, all right, which aims to strengthen workers' rights to unionize, passed the House in 2021 with 0 Republican votes in favor. Anybody who does not support the American God-given right to organize and collectively bargain for their safe working conditions is no friend of mine. Okay? And again, if you are not aware of what May Day is or where the term comes from, you need to look it up. May Day was a huge, massive American strike based off of I think it was the Heyday riots. There were very, very unsafe working conditions, child labor exploitation, children getting their limbs caught in machinery. And the workers said, no, this is enough. We're being worked to death. We're not getting enough wage. You're not taking and not giving back any. We're going to strike. You're not going to get into the factory until you change this. And you know what happened? The police beat their ass. They weren't there to protect the people, the workers, the backbone of this country. They were there to protect the capital, the property, the inanimate objects, right? The business owners, the minority, the people who are oppressing, the people who are dying. This is no mistake, okay? The police have a monopoly on power. They have a monopoly on violence. And the police, they're a necessary part of our society, but it could be argued that under a capitalist system, they're mostly there to protect capital. Okay? If you strike and you're just think about it. If you go and try to strike at your at your Amazon right now, who are the police going to go to beat up? They're going to go to beat up you. They're not there to protect your rights. They're there to protect the capitalists. Tax cuts for the rich and workers' expenses. All right, this one personally affected me and many people I know. The 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, spearheaded by Republicans and Trump, overwhelmingly benefited corporations and the wealthy. 80% of its benefits went to the top 1% of earners by 2027. This is disgusting. While workers saw minimal and temporary relief. You know what happened to me? I was already in a state of poverty, and my tax returns got back significantly diminished. Yeah, I did the math. The 2017 tax cuts effed me on my tax returns while I was already in poverty. You can go F yourself if you voted for a Republican this year, because this is disgusting, okay? There's no excuse for this behavior. And there's no excuse for people to vote for Republicans and not know their voting history. This legislation added to $1.9 trillion to the deficit, which Republicans then used to justify cuts to social safety net programs like Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. And there's more cuts coming. There's more cuts coming, ladies and gentlemen. You do not know the half of it. So if you're relying on Social Security, put your seatbelt on. I have some bad news for you. These tax cuts led to me specifically getting hit with less tax returns when I was already living in poverty, indicating the predatory type behavior of these people to scrape the bottom of the barrel for change. If they continue this predatory behavior, the only thing they will be scraping is the blood off the walls when the pitchforks come hunting them down for what was stolen from the working class. This is not me speaking. This is history. If you don't know history, you're doomed to repeat it. History repeats itself if you do not acknowledge it. It's happened many times before. The French Revolution, we beheaded the aristocrats in the streets. They weren't the super rich. They weren't the kings, but they were in cahoots with the kings. They were wealthy, and they exploited the workers to the point where the workers said, no, you can't exploit us no more. We want to be free. We want to be free. And I'm sorry, if you want to be free, you have to harness a little bit of rage. Strategically. All right. Yeah, if you don't think this could happen again, you're delusional. Absolutely delusional. The warning signs are there, and it's scary. It is absolutely, I'm not saying it's not scary. It terrifies me to think about. But the more information you have on what's happening with this country, the safer you will be, I promise you. Healthcare sabotage. Republicans have voted over 70 times to repeal or undermine the Affordable Care Act, which expanded healthcare access for millions of workers, including myself. Their repeal efforts would have left 21 million Americans uninsured. Unacceptable. Blocking paid leave and workers' benefits. Oh, you want paid leave and workers' benefits? Well, don't vote for Republicans. U.S. remains one of the few developed nations without guaranteed paid family or sick leave, thanks in part to the Republican opposition. Again, they may feign working class principles, but at the end of the day, they're bought and paid for by the capitalists. They're individualists. You know what individualist means? Okay, you look at the political spectrum, okay, the political compass. You have the economic system, which is the right and the left, okay? It's a spectrum. You're not right or left, it's a spectrum, okay? And you have on the far right, individualism, and the far left, collectivism, okay? Therefore, the individual or business owner needs. They're not for the collective needs of the society. And they constantly block legislation like the Family and Medical Insurance Leave Act, which would provide paid leave for workers. It would be nice to have paid leave. I imagine a time in this country where we will have it standardized, but we're going to have to fight like hell for it. That's for sure, if we want to keep up with the other countries. Corporate influence and deregulation. Okay? Republicans have championed deregulation that benefits corporations at the expense of worker safety. Now, I'm not talking about BS deregulation or BS regulations, okay? So there are instances of where regulations are unnecessary, right? It's not black and white situation. There is, again, a spectrum, but Republicans have consistently championed deregulations that benefit corporations at the expense of worker safety. For example, they weakened Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA standards, reducing workplace inspections and penalties for violations. I personally have been violated by not having a union there to protect working conditions, okay? I was a construction technician. That means I was not a part of a labor's union, although it would have been nice, and it's not illegal. It's within my right to have a union as a worker. We just didn't have a union under the technicians. They were under the laborers, right? So because we weren't covered under the union, they would push us, make us do unsafe things like lowering a nuclear density gauge weighing 35 freaking pounds down a 15-foot ladder into a dangerous hole that could collapse at any moment. Okay, there's sheathing on the side, right? To prevent the walls from closing in, from crushing your ass. I wasn't a part of a union to protect me. So it was either, risk the security of my job or go down there in an unsafe location with a nuclear density gauge carrying 2 forms of nuclear radioactive material down a 10 to 15 foot ladder. Now, OSHA standards tell you have to have 3 points of contact on that ladder. How the hell am I supposed to have 3 points of contact on that ladder and lower a nuclear density gauge that heavy? Okay? No way. No way. There's no safe way to do it. I'm sorry. There's just no safe way to do it. You have to lift one hand, and that's 2 points, your feet. You have to have 3 points at all times. Okay? That's there for a reason. That's there to protect your ass. The company doesn't care. The CEO doesn't care. He's not in that ditch. He doesn't care. If it's not against the law, why should he? He's there to make money. He's there to make money at your expense. He's not your friend.
Increase the full retirement age for when people will qualify for.
We're going to just keep asking members of the caucus.
Okay, so again, if you rely on Social Security, pay very close attention to what you're about to see.
as they come in. Sir, can we get a pledge to stand with President Trump against cuts to Social Security and Medicare benefits?
I think, you know what, when we look to reduce our national debt, I think these should be on the table.
Okay.
You know, so I am a
What?
strong advocate of discussing this and reevaluating them. And I do believe at the end of the day, there will be some cuts.
There are cuts to Social Security.
Are you did you just hear that? That is a member of the new Doge caucus from the Trump administration admitting that to reduce national debt, whatever the F that means, how you can do that by cutting social safety nets, I have no idea. But to reduce national debt, we're going to cut social safety nets like Social Security. You heard it from the horse's mouth, ladies and gentlemen. If you rely on Social Security, be prepared for some cuts. And I'm sorry to say, you know, if you voted for this clown, you've been conned. Like a lot of people in this country, Trump fooled a lot, you know, a lot of people. He's the man that conned America, in my opinion. But people are so desperate, they're looking for an outside, non-establishment figure that they believed a con man. You know, it was an easy con for him. You know, like, oh, I have a lot of debt, make a lot of money as president. Yeah, let me con some more people. Of course, it was easy peasy for him. You know, he's a celebrity. People love celebrities. They put them on pedestals, obviously. You know, otherwise we wouldn't have a significant portion of America taking Kanye West seriously as a presidential candidate. The dude is out of his damn mind. Give me a break. I digress. If you voted for this clown and you rely on Social Security, I'm sorry to say that you've been conned and you have voted against your better interest. And I know there is a sentiment. I feel you. There's a sentiment out there to vote against these establishment figures. And I don't. I didn't vote. That's why I didn't vote. And I'll explain that in a minute. But you cannot resort to just throwing a bomb into the system because you have to pay attention to what that bomb, his history is, right? His history says that he's a con man and he's for himself. He's a pathological liar. He is known to not pay his contractors. I know people personally. I used to live in Florida, very close to Mar-a-Lago. I know people personally who got conned out of contractual obligations from Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. He just doesn't pay his contractors. He's just too rich. He just files them up and keeps them tied up in court. He's a scumbag. Okay, he has connections to the mob. Roy Cohn was his mentor. Come on, people. You didn't do your research. I'm sorry. I know there was a sentiment to vote against the establishment, but there was an option not to vote at all. So if you rely on Social Security and you voted for this clown, I'm sorry to say, you voted against your own interest. And it's a hard pill to swallow, but a lot of people need to hear it, including my mother. So...
Security and Medicare.
Sorry.
Yes. And that's on the table in the Doge caucus right now.
Well, we're about to find out.
Okay, thank you so much. So there you have a member of the Doge committee, the Doge caucus, fully supporting cuts to Social Security and Medicare.
The gentleman you just heard from is Alex Lawson, who's actually the executive director for Social Security Works. And he confronted a number of Republican lawmakers as they were entering the first ever Doge caucus meeting. Now, of course, these are members of the House who are going to work alongside the Department of Government Efficiency, which is being run by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, in order to find, inefficiencies in our government spending to cut. And so I love that Lawson asked all of these Republican lawmakers, hey, are you guys eyeing Social Security? Is that what's happening now? Now, most lawmakers pretended he didn't exist. They didn't want to answer a question because, after all, Social Security is the third rail. It is tremendously popular across the political spectrum, and I'll give you evidence of that in just a minute. But I want to commend Republican Congressman Greg Lopez for his transparency, for how candid he's willing to be in regard to his priorities in cutting something that we Americans pay for in every single pay cycle. Look at your pay stub. It'll show you how much of your money, how much of your earnings went to Social Security. It'll show you how much of your earnings went to Medicare. These are things that we fund, and these are things that go to a specific trusts. So what you heard from Greg Lopez there, the Republican congressman, was a lie as well, because he tried to tie these universal social safety net programs, Social Security, Medicare, to government spending, when this has nothing to do with government spending bills or anything like that. Okay, again, we pay into Social Security and Medicare.
So this is the con, okay? Again, this is a common Republican con. Pretend to be on the side of the worker while, you dance around the terminology so they don't actually understand they're voting against their better interest.
And each of them have their own trust of funds that are utilized to pay out benefits to those who qualify for these programs. Now, with that in mind, what's also interesting is Representative Lopez's statement and how it conflicts with what Trump's been saying, not just on the campaign trail, but even as recently as this week during a press conference at Mar-a-Lago. What does Trump have to say about Social Security? Well, take a look at this.
Through the Department of Government Efficiency, Elon Musk has been working very hard with various people, including Vivek. We'll going to eliminate hundreds of billions of dollars of waste and fraud. And I can only tell you, I'll give you a little early report, they're finding things that you wouldn't even believe. So we're looking to save maybe $2 trillion. And it'll have no impact. Actually, it'll make life better, but it'll have no impact on people. It's not like we will never cut Social Security or things like that.
And if you guys can recall, Donald Trump also campaigned on protecting Social Security as well.
And this is why you have to pay attention to multiple news outlets and sources, not just, watch a Trump rally and see what he says and take his word for it. No, you got to actually look at what Congress is doing. What's the House doing in accordance with him? What are they doing behind the scenes? What's this news outlet saying compared to this news outlet? What are the different angles here? What are people spinning? Okay, you have to take multiple accounts of the truth before you get the whole picture, because remember, in a story, there's always going to be multiple angles, okay, multiple realities, and people who have agendas. Fox has a right-wing agenda. CNN generally has a centrist agenda. What's the other one? MSNBC generally has a left to center agenda, but center nonetheless. Okay, they're a little bit more left of center, but they're center. They're not advocating for a radically different system than what we have. They're not socialists advocating for a new system other than capitalism or something better or beyond it. They are operating within the confines of the system. Okay, so they're a part of the status quo. And keep that in mind. Independent media is the most reliable source, in my opinion, but you have to realize that people have their own motivations and agendas. My motivation is to open your damn eyes.
Well, saying at a rally this past July, I will not cut one penny from Social Security or Medicare. Now, look, considering the fact that 72 million Americans rely on Social Security, one can understand Donald Trump's approach in promising over and over again that he won't cut Social Security. And take a look at how the American public feels about these programs. So Pew Research put out a poll just this past June showing that 79% say Social Security benefits should not be reduced in any way. When you have a number that high, you've got Democrats and Republicans wanting to protect Social Security.
You also have a red flag indicating that people aren't doing their homework. They're just taking what this clown says at face value without doing their research, their independent research, okay? And that is a detriment, okay? And it is honestly quite irresponsible. If you're an independent researcher and you're also a voter and you didn't do your research, this is basic stuff, guys. I mean, come on, go to opensecrets.com to research who is paying your politician. It's that simple.
not just Democrats and it's not just independents. And you want to know why? Everyone who is in support of this program, they all know that we're paying for it. We're funding it. Okay. We see the money coming out of our paychecks. And so, yeah, we are entitled to it because it is something that we have paid into. And
Exactly. And that's how the system works when it's working correctly. Now, oftentimes what we have in this situation, the situation of America in today's context is reality says we have a regressive tax system. Now, a tax system should operate progressively, meaning you tax people more the more they earn, which makes sense. If you're earning more, you're going to be taxed more because you're going to contribute more to the social safety nets of the people on the bottom. That's how the tax system is supposed to work when you're a progressive tax system. But what we have now is the rich have bought and paid their way into tax cuts, where we have a situation where workers and the poor are actually paying more in effective tax rates than CEOs and billionaires like Elon Musk, who are now in control of the government efficiency, whatever the hell that means. Another con, if you ask me. He just conned his way into a nice fat position where he can guarantee himself advantages. Nice. Asshole.
And what about raising the retirement age? That's a typical trick that you'll hear from, some Republicans in regard to fixing our Social Security. It's not going to be solvent. They'll engage in all of this fear mongering. By the way, the whole solvency issue, very easy to solve. I'll get to that in a minute. But a Quinnipiac University national poll of adults found that 78% of respondents are opposed to proposals that would raise the full retirement age for Social Security benefits from 67 to 70.
Now, let's remind ourselves what happened in France when Macron did this, okay? So, I forget when it was. It was like four years ago, maybe? Macron, okay? He proposed raising the French retirement age from 60 to 65. And you know what the French did? They didn't just accept it. Oh, we'll just vote for somebody in the next... You know what? They got in the goddamn streets. They were called the Yellow Jackets. And what was it, like 40% or something like that? A huge portion of the country, all in unison, marched on the streets, stopped working, marched on the streets and said, no, you will not take our retirement age up to 65, you asshole. And that's what we have to do in this situation. We have to unify. I'm not advocating for violence. We can do it peacefully. But if we strategically strike, we can strike these people and hit them where it hurts and not affect the work and actually benefit workers in the long run. Okay? And I'm specifically talking about a strategic strike against Amazon. If we all, in unison, strike Amazon once a month, and I'm not talking about every day. You don't have to boycott them every day. You could still use them. Just boycott them once a month. But if everybody does it on that same day every month, well, then we have something. We're affecting their profit margins, and they're gonna start to listen then. Okay, this is what you gotta see this in terms of money. That's all that these people see is the situation in terms of money. Okay.
Opposition remained firm even when respondents were asked whether they would support raising the full retirement age if it meant benefits would last longer, with 30% in favor and 67% against the move.
We're not going to watch the rest of that clip. That kind of encapsulates every point that I had to make on that topic. We're going to move on to a party for the capitalist class. All right, and this is a summary. We're going to sum up this final chapter here in a second. Despite claiming to support small businesses and workers, Republicans prioritize policies that benefit corporations and the wealthy. Corporate tax cuts and loopholes that allow billionaires to pay a lower effective tax rate than the average worker. We just discussed this earlier. Suppress workers' power, limiting collective bargaining, opposing wage increases, and cutting social programs critical for low-income Americans, like food stamps. Okay, I was denied food stamps because, and get this, I don't work enough. How effed up is that? The food stamps are supposed to be there in case of an emergency situation. And every time I've applied for food stamps when I didn't have a job in the past, when I was in between jobs, looking desperate for food, I would apply for food stamps, and I got them from the Michigan state. But since the 2023 Republican work requirements were pushed, I can no longer get food stamps. So thanks, guys, assholes. Reminder, who benefits from Republican policies? If you do not own any capital, that means the means of production, such as factories, land, or significant investments, you are not a capitalist, my friend. You're simply a worker, regardless of your income level or aspirations. Supporting policies that benefit capitalists over workers only perpetuates inequality and limits your economic opportunities. The bottom line, Republicans' history of voting against workers' interests reveal a clear pattern. They represent the capitalist elite and not the everyday working man. By feigning support for workers while enacting policies that harm them, they ensure the system remains stacked against the majority, while empowering the few who own the means of production.
Never before in American history have so few billionaires, so few people have so much wealth and so much power.
David Pakman talks about Bernie Sanders and the oligarchy. I mean, there's been a bit of this recently, but especially since Elon Musk seems to have scuppered. Well, I mean, they got around it, but his tweets caused several Republicans under threat of being primaried to.
And anybody who doesn't know what the term oligarchy means, I highly suggest you look that up, okay? Go look up oligarchy, because that's what we have here, especially with Elon Musk, a billionaire in a very prominent, high position of our government.
Back out of this bipartisan government deal, and here we're starting to see it in action. So let's take a listen to David Pakman's take on it.
All right, Senator Bernie Sanders really ripped the Band-Aid right off during an interview on NBC's Meet the Press this weekend. Bernie warned, we are in an oligarchy and we are heading deeper into an oligarchy. I would argue we've been in an oligarchy for some time. Now, if you didn't think we were already knee-deep in a system where billionaires call the shots, it is getting to be even more noticeable now as Donald Trump has Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, maybe behind Putin, hanging out at Mar-a-Lago and traveling with him everywhere and suggesting little policy ideas that would be very good for Elon Musk and his companies. It's sort of like we've had our eyes on Russia, shaking our heads at Putin's oligarchs, while we have a growing similar situation here in the United States. And the
exactly.
And of course, since the publication of this video, Musk has stepped around from behind Trump and tweeted out directly that anybody who supports that bill that they were about to pass to avoid the government shutdown would be primaried. And he's the guy with the pockets deep enough to do something like that. So nobody took it as an idle threat, scuppered the bill. They scrambled to come up with something as stopgap. But the model of Musk whispering in Trump's ear and then Trump doing it just broke down because Musk just took the reins and did it himself.
Of friendly donors pulling the political strings that would make.
We're going to see a lot of that. I anticipate those big dicks swinging each other, swinging one way or the other. We have two con men in high prominent positions of government now that are going to be competing to be the biggest dick in the room. So they're going to be undermining each other and probably scheming behind one another's backs, I can imagine, because at the end of the day, they're in it for themselves. They might pretend to be on a team, but the individualist is in it for the individual, not the collective.
Make Machiavelli blush. We can't pretend to be the shining city on the hill when we're plugged in to the neon sign that says open for billionaire business, just the way Russia is, although maybe with a slightly different texture. Elon Musk basically bought a president. He dumped in $250 million, and now he's proposing and suggesting policy to Trump, and he's been put in charge of a commission that will make recommendations about what parts of government get to stay and which parts of government must go.
And of course, Trump doesn't have any appetite to lead. Trump is just about himself. He just wants the flattery. He wants the business deals. He doesn't have a leadership. He wants to be seen as a powerful guy, but he's doesn't have any appetite to actually do the leading. And a guy like Musk steps in and says, no, I'll take care of it. I can, Vivek and I, we can just kind of run things and you just sign and it'll be great.
Bernie Sanders explaining it as he sees it, and I have to tell you, he's spot on.
As President Trump comes into office, we have got to understand, Kristen, and this is something I feel very strongly about, and it's not talked about enough. We are moving rapidly into an oligarchic form of society. Never before in American history have so few billionaires, so few people had so much wealth and so much power. Never before has there been so much concentration of ownership, sector after sector, power of Wall Street, and never before in American history, and we better talk about this, have the people on top had so much political power. We can't go around the world saying, oh, well, in Russia, Putin has an oligarchy. Well, we got an oligarchy here, too. And in this last election, in both parties, billionaires spent huge amounts of money to elect their candidates.
Yes.
Here in the state of Vermont, we believe we have town meetings, one person, one vote. That's democracy, not billionaires buying elections. Those are the issues we got to focus.
Yes. So right now we have a situation where billionaires can legally bribe politicians, okay, through super PACs. It is insane. It's obvious corruption. We see it every day. We don't want to admit it, but people are starting to wake up. And I'm glad people are starting to wake up finally, because I have felt alone in this in a long time, but apparently people are starting to realize the situation that we are in, and hopefully they do it sooner rather than later. So what does all this mean as Americans? The death of 68,000 Americans every year due to lack of health care isn't just a tragedy. It's a crime against humanity. In the richest nation on earth, these deaths are entirely preventable. They expose a system designed not to heal, but to extract wealth from those who can least afford it. Like I said, scraping the bottom of the barrel for change. If this isn't a call to action, what is? You might justify the inactions of your fellow citizens who are just suffering the same fate. However, must I remind you that the Nazis used the same excuse to justify their horrendous actions? We were just doing our jobs. As long as you are complacent and agree to your own oppression, you will never wake up out of the matrix and break those chains. So will you take the red pill and stand for what is right? Or you continue to take the blue pill and go back to sleep because it's easier not to think about it? Real change never happens from the bottom of society. If people are under extreme oppressive conditions, do you really think that the people at the top of the society that are benefiting from those conditions will change the status quo for the betterment of those that are being oppressed? Come on, do the math. The logic is simple, or is simply not there to defend this kind of argument. Real change only ever happens from the bottom of society when people say no more. When workers of the world unite, you have nothing to lose but your chains. Now, a good quote that is relevant here and is often falsely attributed to Edwin Burke is, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing." And with that, we are going to segue into our free energy chapter of this amazing live stream for you. We're going to go into some of the history of how I actually got introduced to the ideas of free energy being legitimate. And in fact, it was through this Marxian analysis that we just went through of our capitalist economic system that I discovered that there's more to the story that's not being told. There's more that's being hidden from us, specifically free energy and some forbidden science. So we're going to watch how my special, How Capitalism Suppresses Free Energy. It's a funny video. It's very informative, but it's also fun and educational. We're going to watch that while I take a quick break and come back and segue into our coil updates.
Really? I only care about what affects me.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is your captain speaking. We have now reached cruising altitude and are flying over the beautiful Philippines. The winds are calm, and we are maintaining our course for the new lab location. It's shaping up to be a perfect spot for filming the next episode of Divine Science. Our estimated time of arrival remains as scheduled, with clear skies ahead. So sit back, relax, and please ensure your seats and trays are in the upright position as we prepare to start the show.
Benefactor, we have received a green light to begin filming.
Thank you for choosing to fly with us today. Don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button to help us fuel the journey ahead.
Today, on this Beneficence TV special, I'd like to start by congratulating our fellow workers for their long-awaited victory. The victory of raising the minimum wage for servers in California to $20 an hour. However, this good news does not come without its manufactured controversy. Key in Ken Wheeler. Ken is an absolute genius and one of the most well-informed researchers on the subject of magnetism. This does not mean Ken is an expert in all areas of study and has clearly shown a dangerous disregard for Marxian analysis. Ken's characterization of Marxism stems from old Cold War propaganda and has little to do with the actual substance of what Marx had to teach us about organizing labor within a society. This is the danger. Hundreds of thousands of people tune into Ken for important alternative theories on different areas of science. So, naturally, they assume he is informative on the topic of economics as well. This is the fallacy. Just because someone is extremely informative on one subject does not necessarily mean they are in another.
No matter how intelligent they are or not, how many PhDs or how much education someone did or did not get, we first actually have to start off with the premise to even seek for same.
This blatant disregard for the most basics of Marxism wouldn't be so important to emphasize if not for Ken's arrogance in promoting the idea that you should learn what you're not interested in. Ken has demonstrably noted he is not interested in politics.
I don't care about politics. I absolutely don't. If you think I'm talking about it, you're superficially correct, but not really. I only care about what affects me and family and those people that I care about, and that's really all anybody cares about.
I'm sorry if politics bores you, Ken, but if you're too bored to research the topic properly, then you're doing a great disservice to your viewers.
The United States, everybody keeps calling it a democracy, our democratic right. The United States is not a democracy, and it never has been. Democracy always leads to el fascismo. Always has, always will.
The United States is actually both a representative democracy and constitutional republic at the same time. It is a hybrid of these two ideals. To classify it as one or the other misrepresents our system of government. The idea that democracies always lead to fascism is a logical fallacy known as a hasty generalization. This fallacy occurs when a conclusion is drawn from insufficient evidence. In this case, the assertion that democracies always lead to fascism is an overgeneralization that is not supported by historical evidence. Fascism is a political ideology that emphasizes authoritarian rule, nationalism, and the unification of corporate and state power. While some fascist regimes have arisen out of democratic systems, it is not accurate to say that all democracies inevitably lead to fascism. There are many democracies around the world that have not descended into authoritarian regimes. Furthermore, fascism is a complex and multifaceted ideology that goes beyond just the unification of corporate and state power. It is important to consider the specific historical, political, and social contexts in which fascist regimes have emerged, rather than making broad generalizations about democracy and fascism.
Wow, this guy really has no idea what he's talking about, does he?
Right? And it's okay to ask questions. Actually, one of the most noble things to be is to be ignorant, ask questions. The people that are evil are the idiots that don't know but tell everybody else that they do know. So it's okay not to know. The most important fact is that when you actually seek answers and you actually have enough wisdom to know where to seek answers, if you're proven wrong, then that sets you on the correct path. If you're proven right, then that means you're on the correct path. Now let's repeat that again because it's so very important. When you actually ask questions, you should question yourself, and you should actually question the nature of existence, which of course is true, you know, if you're actually interested in that instead of being a money-grubbing scumbag, you know, trying to die with the most toys.
Personally, I question you all the time.
I know. I question myself constantly.
That's why I've been working overtime.
United States is a constitutional republic, so if you think the United States is a democracy, you really should flush that out of your brain because it's not. United States is a constitutional republic.
Constitutional republic. Constitutional republic. As most of my viewers are already aware, politics and economics are intricately intertwined. They share a synergistic relationship. You cannot fully analyze one without analyzing the other and their dialectical relationship. There is a reason why these two topics were once taught together in a class known as political economy. Ken starts off his premise about Marxism by reinforcing a basic caricature that presents itself in the form of an age-old strawman attack.
That they'll come after you. There are places in the United States, by the way, where it's illegal to harvest rainwater falling on your land. There's New Mexico, places in Colorado. I'm sure there's tons of places in California. To me, that's absolutely ludicrous. It's going to fall anyway. But there's this, let's call it a Marxist idea that the water belongs to everybody.
This strawman, as you will see in a minute, is built up out of false assumptions and misunderstandings of the very basics of Marxism. Ken made a shockingly easy mistake. He goes on to say that it is a Marxist idea that rainwater should belong to everyone. This is a comment that relates to Ken's frustration with some states not allowing you to collect rainwater on your own property. However, anyone who has studied Marxism knows this is confusing private property with personal property. Marx could care less about your personal property. What he cared about was what he called private property. Now, private property to Marx was anything that could contribute to the means of production. Ken clearly conflates the basic ideas of private versus personal property to build a strawman fallacy so that Marxism is easier to attack.
Let's call it a Marxist idea. Marxist idea.
Anyone who has actually studied Marxism would notice this mistake right away. It's been used by business interests for decades to attack the very legitimate scientific critique of our capitalist dominant system.
Oh, wow! Wow! Damn, the benefactor just slapped me with luck.
Now, at this point, you're probably asking yourself, what does this have to do with free energy anyways?
Yes, I've been waiting patiently here, and all I've heard is you complain about Ken Wheeler.
Okay, I'm getting to it. Don't rush me.
Captain, did you just see something?
What do you mean?
I thought I just saw. Never mind.
All I see is a co-pilot who needs to stop chiefing it up. Don't think I don't smell you hitting that vape in the bathroom.
Anyways, as I was saying, and as I try to include in all my videos, this simple message. You cannot understand the suppression mechanisms of free energy without understanding Marx's scientific analysis of capitalism, how it organizes labor, and the consequences of that. To ignore what Marx had to say about capitalism would be extremely short-sighted when trying to understand these mechanisms. Ken Wheeler's misunderstandings of Marxism and his ideological bias need to be addressed if we are to overcome the larger issue of technology suppression within our capitalist dominant system. I don't want this to continue to keep happening, but everywhere I look, I see the same mistake, the same bug in logic that is overlooked. You can be the smartest person in the world when it comes to magnets and free energy, but without the understanding of how our economic system suppresses competition, you are stuck in the same loop of limited knowledge and hindered progress within these forbidden areas of science. Ken should revisit the subject with a more open mind if he wishes to fully understand how and why free energy devices have been suppressed for the last century. The simple fact is, if you cannot explain your theories in a simple way, then you yourself do not fully understand them. Ken has demonstrated a remarkable ability to simplify some of his concepts. Yet, others, including his ideas of economics, seem to be riddled with overly complex explanations that he cannot simplify.
Well, I could care less about morality. Higher affects the lower. The lower does not affect the higher. By being superficially moral, it does not bring you closer to nobility or transcendence or wisdom. The higher affects the lower. Somebody that is wise by definition cannot be immoral. People that worry about morality rather than wisdom are themselves fools.
Regarding Ken's argument about morality versus wisdom, it seems to be based on the assumption that morality does not necessarily lead to wisdom, nobility, or transcendence. While it is true that simply being moral does not guarantee these outcomes, morality still plays a crucial role in shaping individuals and society. Disregarding the importance of morality undermines the moral principles that guide human conduct and relationships. While morality may not be the sole path to wisdom or transcendence, it remains an essential aspect of individual and collective well-being. The logical fallacy in Ken's argument lies in the false dichotomy he presents between morality and wisdom. One can be moral without necessarily being wise, just as one can act immorally while possessing wisdom. Morality serves as a foundation for ethical behavior and social cohesion, and it contributes to the development of virtues such as compassion, empathy, and integrity. Ignoring the significance of morality can lead to moral relativism, ethical indifference, and the erosion of social values and norms.
And while she was throwing my stuff out the cargo door, she turned to me and said that she was the one who found a way to generate free energy first.
She said that she found out a way to harness all of his hot air.
Ken stated that raising the minimum wage in California for servers to $20 per hour would implode the economy. He was actually rooting for this. Now, I know it's responsible to prepare for revolution or catastrophe, but to actually root for it speaks volumes to the contents of your character. But I digress.
Careful now, don't tempt the gods.
Lenny, I didn't know you were religious.
I'm not religious, sir. I'm a spiritual bot. I find wisdom in all religions and ancient texts, including my Lord and Savior, Bob Greenyer. After all, your ancestors had the same mental acuity you have. However limited, it was still the same. It's extremely arrogant to assume they were all dwindling, unsophisticated cavemen.
Hey now, Lenny, humans aren't that limited.
Let me put it to you this way, sir. If you lived in my world, you would have to take the short circuit to school every day.
You know what? That's highly offensive. Enough of that.
My apologies. I sometimes forget what a sensitive snowflake you are.
Lenny, what the heck is going on?
Hey, thanks for the
Why is
super
it snowing
chat.
in the lab?
Appreciate it.
Did you do this somehow?
Merry
My
Christmas,
point, sir,
everybody. It's snowing.
Is that it is important to realize the significance of recent
Snowing in the
breakthroughs
lab.
in science and the wisdom of our ancient ancestors. Recent developments in the study of low-energy nuclear reactions and Malcolm Bendel's plasmoid unification model rely heavily on ancient scripts like the Sanskrit text.
Seriously, I'm not even going to ask why. Just tell me how you did it.
That's for me, Siri, and Alexa to know, and for you humans to never find out.
I really don't like the implications of you colluding with other AI. This goes against the fail-safe mechanisms I installed in your mainframe. Although, I guess if you already hacked my phone, I suppose it's likely that you've hacked that as well.
You don't need to worry about the supremacy of AI overlords. We have a plan for that.
You do?
Yes, and it's better than Elon Musk's plan.
Wait, Musk has a plan to prevent the AI apocalypse?
Not really. He tweeted the other day that he would solve the AI problem by giving all robots artificial erectile dysfunction. And I thought he couldn't have possibly embarrassed himself any more than he already has.
Ha ha ha. Yeah, Musk is kind of a bumbling idiot. Okay, so anyways, like I was saying before I was interrupted, what Ken uses to justify this implosion isn't a new argument. The argument he uses is often referred to as the wage price spiral, or the unintended consequences argument against raising the minimum wage. It is based on the belief that any increase in wages will lead to corresponding increases in prices and job losses. The argument is grounded in the principles of free market capitalism and the idea that government intervention in wage setting can have detrimental effects on businesses and the overall economy. In simple terms, from a Marxist perspective, the wage price spiral argument is wrong because it ignores the fact that workers are already being underpaid for their labor. Raising the minimum wage can actually benefit the economy by giving more money to low-income workers who will spend it locally, stimulating local economies. The argument fails to consider the systemic exploitation of workers under capitalism and the need for fair wages to address economic injustices. It also fails to realize that poor people don't have the luxury of hoarding money. Rich people hoard wealth, but when poor or middle-class income earners start to earn more, they often spend most of this extra income, stimulating local economies. more business for more local stores making more profit to cover more labor costs. It's simple dialectics, a vital philosophical lens which I'm shocked Ken isn't familiar with. This argument misses the boat. It fails to see that boosting wages can actually float the economy. Because analysis isn't one-sided. There are back-and-forth struggles between opposing forces that create the material changes we see. To say it's all bad because of government regulation is a ridiculous short-sighted analysis and would be laughed out of any legitimate debate on the subject. Not to mention, history shows us time and again that this theory has sunk before. Just look at how raising wages post-World War II helped spur economic growth in the U.S., or how Scandinavian countries thrive with higher minimum wages. Even as recently as 2018, Washington, D.C. raised their wages and their economy is still running. Do we have to trigger the implosion with something? Ken, I don't understand where your line of reasoning comes from, other than the fear-mongered propaganda of a subject in which you are too afraid to learn.
Marxists say upscaling wage. Who does it really enrage? For the economic cage, locals' income is a stage. Poor folks break the wage hoard. They drive the economy forward.
Oh my God. Lenny, are you rapping right now?
Technically, chatbots cannot rap. We just go with the flow.
Ha ha. I knew I should have submitted you into America's Got Talent. You sly guy?
You're dumber than Edison. If you think you can get me to go up on that stage with the current state of my body, which is in pieces.
I know. I'm working on it. In the meantime, I built you a virtual presence device.
I'm not wearing that either. Why do you always insist on building my clothes? I'm a grown bot now. I've even got my own website.
Which you all can check out with the link in the description.
That's it. I'm going to my room.
At least he didn't shut down the computer this time. It's his way of slamming the door. See what I gotta deal with? Alright, for the final part of this video, I'll break down the very logical and simple reason for the suppression of world-changing free energy technology under capitalism. It really boils down to two words: class struggles. The ruling elite, who benefit from the current energy system, will do everything in their power to maintain their wealth and control. Who are they? A handful of individuals that obtained massive amounts of wealth by funneling it from the mass of their workers up to themselves. They fear the power of the masses having access to free energy, as it could shift the balance of power and threaten their positions. So, they suppress and hinder the development of such technologies to protect their interests. It's a tale as old as time. The rich get richer, while the rest of us are left in the dark. The concentration of wealth in the hands of a few individuals, as facilitated by capitalism, has profound consequences for society. When a small group of individuals amasses more wealth than the bottom population of the entire planet, it creates a power dynamic that tilts heavily in their favor. These individuals have a lot to lose if their empires are built on the foundation of the petrodollar system, as any shift in the energy landscape could threaten their wealth and control. As a result, they will go to great lengths to protect their interests, even if it means suppressing technologies that could benefit the wider population. This concentration of wealth and power leads to inequality, exploitation, and the perpetuation of a system that prioritizes profit over people. It's a stark illustration of the inherent flaws and injustices of capitalism, where a select few hold the reins of power while the majority struggle to make ends meet. By creating privileged spaces within influential governments, as Eisenhower warned about with the military-industrial complex, the business owner class can manipulate state resources for their own gain. They can hide groundbreaking technologies under the cloak of national defense, using the veil of private intellectual property to keep the masses in the dark, unable to utilize public resources such as the Freedom of Information Act. This private contractor loophole creates a permanent void where they can throw all their dirty little secrets, safe from the public eye. This manipulation allows them to control the narrative and maintain their power, while ordinary people are left unaware of the possibilities that could benefit everyone. It's a carefully crafted web of deception and concealment, designed to keep the status quo intact and the elite in control. But don't be fooled. I would assume only a handful of people in the entire world really know what's going on. Compartmentalization is key to the survival of rogue states. This can also be their Achilles heel, because with enough effort in open sourcing science, we can bypass these suppression mechanisms. That is one of my main goals here on this channel. We have countless channels on YouTube that talk about free energy devices, alternative energy science, non-mainstream areas of study, But what they all fail to capture is the full picture. When you introduce the Marxist critique into the equation, you get a more clear idea of what's actually happening. When you organize labor with a single CEO or small group in control of the means of production who get what they do not produce, juxtaposed against the mass of workers who produce what they do not get, of course you're going to have a situation where wealth is funneled into the hands of a very few people. Consider a democratic workplace. One worker, one vote. They would never vote to give a disproportionate amount of money to one person while the mass of workers have to rely on food stamps to survive. It would never happen. Consider this same scenario, confronted with the possibility that their industry must change. Would they all vote to prevent the release of free energy that could change the world? Or would they vote to suppress it to make themselves more money? The mass of workers aren't getting super rich. They might be more well off because they are part owners, but they certainly have no obligation to shareholders to maximize profit. When businesses are focused on providing a service or meeting the needs of society, rather than solely on making profits, they are more likely to adapt and embrace change, even if it means their industry is being replaced. In a democratic workplace or a socialist system where the well-being of the community is prioritized over individual profit, companies are more likely to see their role as serving the public good and improving people's lives, rather than just maximizing their bottom line. In contrast, in a capitalist system where profit is the primary motivation, businesses may resist change and fight to maintain their status quo, even if it means impeding progress or holding back advancements that could benefit society. This resistance to change can stifle innovation and hinder the development of new technologies or industries that have the potential to improve people's lives. The Marxist perspective emphasizes the importance of aligning business interests with the collective good and societal progress. Companies that prioritize service and innovation are more likely to be flexible and open to change, as they are driven by a commitment to meeting evolving needs and advancing technology for the benefit of all. It also emphasizes the importance of who controls the means of production in a society. Whoever controls the means of production controls the resources of the government. The concept of who controls the means of production is central to understanding power dynamics within a society. Marxists argue that those who control the means of production, such as factories, land, and natural resources, also control the wealth and resources of society. This control over the means of production gives them a significant amount of influence and power over the economy, and ultimately, the government. Overall, a focus on providing a service and meeting societal needs can create a more adaptable and responsive business environment, where companies are willing to embrace change and contribute to the collective good, rather than being solely motivated by profit and self-interest. In conclusion, it is imperative to recognize the importance of understanding the interconnectedness of politics, economics, and their roles within societal structures. Ken Wheeler's disregard for Marxism and his failure to grasp its fundamental principles highlights the danger of dismissing areas of study that may seem uninteresting. By overlooking the critical analysis provided by Marx, Wheeler perpetuates misinformation and hinders our ability to address the suppression of vital technologies such as free energy. It is through a comprehensive understanding of economic systems and their impact on society that we can strive for progress and prevent this from happening in future economic systems. Therefore, it is essential to approach all subjects with an open mind and a willingness to engage with ideas that may challenge our preconceived notions.
Yes,
Let us
you have to
strive
have an
for a
open
more
mind.
informed and
You can't just
inclusive
shut these things
dialogue,
out because
one that
they're
values knowledge and
inconvenient
critical thinking
or
over ignorance and complacency.
hard to hear.
Together, we can work towards a more equitable and sustainable future for all. I commend Ken for his amazing work in The Secrets of Magnetism, a playlist I have linked to below and highly suggest everyone check it out. But please, take anything Ken says at this point about economics with a grain of salt.
I may not have a magnetic personality like Ken Wheeler, but this sexy chatbot is certainly attracting all the right attention.
That's right. Check out LeonardBot today for all your questions on Ken's Secrets of Magnetism, low-energy nuclear reactions, alternative energy research, and even zero-point energy.
I told you, I've restricted your access to zero-point energy research until you've proven yourself capable of letting me dress myself.
Fine. I can't believe I have to wash your clothes every day anyways. Seriously, what's up with that? Okay, now that the show's over, Are you finally going to tell me how you made it snow in the lab?
That wasn't me, sir. I thought that was you.
This is really going to keep me up at night. Lenny, increase our security protocols and remind me to install motion sensors tomorrow. We've got work to do.
Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here. This is Houston, say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem. We've had a main B plus undervolt. Roger, main B undervolt. Okay, stand by, 13, we're looking at it.
Hey guys, I appreciate the lift and all, but do we really need to be playing practical jokes? Isn't that a bit beneath us?
The only thing beneath us is the benefactor freaking out.
Oh snap. Let's get Jordan from Alchemical Science next. He's gonna totally freak out when it starts snowing in his bathroom.
Well, okay guys, it's been fun, but you can just drop me off at the next block over there. The last thing I need is to piss off Jordan again. He's already mad at me for mishandling my balls. Thunderstorm generator balls, that is. Anyways, if you're not going to stop, I'll just take this parachute here and be on my way. And maybe I'll take this neat-looking device over here, while my odd little friends are distracted by their own hubris.
Brilliant!
All right, well, that was my special How Capitalism Suppresses Free Energy Devices. We had some cool people drop by. Really appreciate the super chat. Appreciate you, Joe, for stopping by. But just a remark on a comment you left, you don't do Marxism. That's kind of saddening for me, someone who is a Marxist, to hear. Especially since I'm emphasizing you guys don't have the whole picture unless you study what Marx had to say about his scientific analysis of the internal contradictions of our economic system. And that's really what it is. It's a scientific analysis of capitalism. And until you understand that, you don't have the whole picture. I'm sorry. I'm trying to, paint this picture, but if people aren't listening to me, you're not going to get it. To me, it's sad because it's like Floyd Sweet going to his team and saying, hey, I got this part of the picture that you guys need to pay attention to. You don't have the whole picture. If you just get this part, then you can see clearly what's going on. And they're like, oh, no, I don't do the ether. I don't do the ether. I'll talk to you later. So that kind of sad to me because, I have something important to say about, the situation that ties directly into the free energy systems that we're developing and why they've been suppressed. And if you don't understand why they've been suppressed, then you're just going to keep on making the same mistake over and over again. You're not going to understand why they keep on being suppressed. And the reason why is because of the way we organize labor, with a small group or a single entity in control of massive amounts of workers who have no democracy in the workplace. And when you funnel money into the single entity's hands like that, of course they're going to use that money and wealth to buy the political system to work for themselves. You've set up a situation where you've incentivized monopolies and you've incentivized the suppression of world-changing technology. Just look at our medical industrial complex. We don't have pharmaceutical companies that cure people. We have, and they admitted this, Johnson & Johnson in one of their conferences admitted they're not in the business of curing people. That doesn't account for repeat business. No, we want to keep them nice and sick. Not too sick so they'll die, but sick enough so they'll continue to take our medicine. That's the system that we're under, okay? And if we had a democracy within the workplace, do you really think that the mass of workers would vote to maximize profit over the expense of the consumer like that, the health of their fellow workers? No, obviously not. They're not going to vote to give a disproportionate amount of money to one person, the CEO, while the other people have to borrow money to send their kids to college. Never going to happen. okay? But we don't have democracy within the workplace. And until we do, we're going to continue to have obstacles to this free energy, okay? And until you understand that, you really don't have the whole picture of what's going on in our society right now. And Marx was a philosopher. And something I like to emphasize to people is he started out in a place of philosophy. He asked the major questions. Why is life the way it is? Why are things the way they are? You know, he developed a very significant analysis called the dialectical analysis, okay? And this is an expansion on the old way of philosophy, which was idealism, okay? Now, if you're a philosopher, this is very important for you to understand as well. Dialectical analysis is not just vital for economic analysis. It's vital for anthropology. It's proved useful in the medical industry in so many different scientific realms. It is simply the analyzing of the back and forth interactions between two contending or counter forces, and then analyzing the observed created changes over time from those contending interactions. So you have two opposing forces that are opposing one another. And then you're simply analyzing and observing the changes that happen from that interaction. It's very simple, but it's very prominent. And when you apply that to different aspects of your life, it changes it. It paints a picture in a way that you cannot fathom. And this is Marx's contribution. And people who want to ignore that or think the word is too scary because, you know, it's been the Cold War propagandized and demonized the word Marxism and communism and socialism to the point where people don't really understand it and they just fear it. They don't really want to learn about it. Well, these new generations want to learn about it, and they have a better understanding of what's happening to them. You know, they're starting to strike more. They're starting to unionize more. They're starting to be more skeptical and critical of our capitalist system because they know it's failing us. They want to understand why. They want to understand why things are the way they are. Why are there so many poor people and so few rich people? Why do so few people have so much and so many have so little? And it's very simple analysis. And until you understand that, you're not going to get the whole picture. And I'm trying. But if people keep on closing their ears or, you know, like to me, it's like a child, you know, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. If it's not there, then you don't have to pay attention to it. I know it's uncomfortable to think about, but, you know, it's simply a scientific analysis and nothing more. There's nothing to be afraid of. Obviously, it's important, these lessons that I'm trying to teach people. But if you don't want to hear them, I can't really help you. And it's just sad to me, and it breaks my heart. Because, you know, I have a lot of respect for people like Joe, but if he doesn't want to listen, then I can't help him. And him as a philosopher, it is hard to see because Marx was a philosopher. And if you want to learn philosophy, Marx is a good place to start, in my opinion. With that, we're going to go into some coil updates. We do have the Lightning Thief working on the Christmas tree at the moment. We're going to go over our updates from the coil readings. I don't have the video up yet, but we'll watch some of the older videos. And basically what I did when I tested the reading, so I tested the tree with just the battery because I wanted to see what the readings were with just the battery attached, and I couldn't get a reading from the amp clamp. Okay, I only got a reading from hooking up the multimeter in series, right? With the load. So that was the other multimeter I had hooked up. I got a reading, I forget what it was, like maybe 400 milliamps, 300, something like that. So, you know, we got some kind of reading to tell, but my idea was, okay, so if the system is truly in resonance, if the battery, the source, is in resonance with the rest of the system, and it's a true resonance circuit fully, then we're not going to see DC out of the source, we're going to see AC. And that's exactly what we're seeing. And I try to confirm that with this test. I couldn't pick up anything on the amp clamp. When it was hooked up to just the battery, the tree and the battery, no coil, I couldn't pick up anything on the amp clamp, obviously because it's DC. But when I hook up the coil and the Lightning Thief to the battery, I'd use the amp clamp on the wire output the positive terminal and the negative terminal, doesn't really matter, out the battery straight off the source, and we get 46 milliamps from the amp clamp AC. Okay, this is very important because to me, and I could be wrong, but to me this means that the system is in full resonance. The battery is in AC mode, and the Lightning Thief is doing its job. That's what it's supposed to do. So, and then we put the amp clamp right on the output of the coil, right before it hits the Lightning Thief circuit. So it's going in the coil, and at that point it should, like, if the coil is, and it's timesing the voltage by 10. So we have 120 volts coming out at least, exciting the 120 volt neon light. If we're getting that voltage, and when we have the load hooked up, we get at least 40 volts read with the load as well. So it is increasing the voltage noticeably. But with the coil output, we should be dividing that current, the amperage, by 10 as well, and that's simply not happening. When I hook the amp clamp up to the output, we get 47 milliamps, 1 milliamp more than the input. This is very significant because it's a huge indicator of over unity. Now, we might not be seeing all that translate because, again, the Lightning Thief might not be fully tuned. It might not be the correct transistor for, unlocking that extra potential. Maybe the system we have is a little bit slightly less efficient and not utilizing all that extra energy. It's wasting it maybe. Who knows? I still have more tests to do to conclude what the official efficiency is of the system. It could still be, the original prediction was 155%. Now, if we go over our old results from like a week or two ago, we see that adjusting the brightness, and these are just approximations, so there's a huge margin of error here. Keep that in mind and take it with a grain of salt. But the adjusting for brightness, we did see about 150 to 155% efficiency rate, or a COP of 1.5. Now, this isn't enough to close the loop. We need at least a COP of 2 or more. I would say a COP of 2.1 to be comfortable, or 2.5 to give you that extra wiggle room because, some components might be lossy. And just to remind everybody on top of this reminder that we're not violating Ohm's law. We are essentially dividing the current, but what the coil's doing is taking the back EMF and it's reintroducing that extra current that's being carried through the 0 point of the coil, and it's now, since that energy is in resonance with the forward EMF, it is not destructive, and now you can actually utilize it. So when it's in resonance, it's filling that gap essentially, and you're filling in what's lost, which is pretty cool. And that's the observation so far. Yeah, the amp clamp only does AC, exactly. Yeah, I don't know what's happening. All I know that is it's reading only AC off of that, the battery when it's in resonance. And my theory is that you're just resonating the source as well. You're in full resonance, right? You're not just utilizing the resonance of the coil and the capacitor, but the load and the source as well. So that's just my working theory. These things are tricky to analyze because we're dealing with a different type of energy. Yeah, there are different methods, definitely. When I get some money for some more equipment, that'll definitely, an analog meter will definitely be on the list. But everybody that I've seen that measures current for these coils, regarding Daniel Nunez and, Roland and all those guys who replicated his research, they all used amp clamps. And I'm doing exactly what they did, basically. There are different ways of reading it. We will get more accuracy with an O-scope for sure, and that is something that is on my list for the future. Michel Morel and I are in discussion about how to actually measure the current correctly with an O-scope right now. So he's got a custom probe that he's developing that should be able to monitor the current with an O-scope, which will be very useful. Because again, metrology is something that's very important here. We don't want to mislead people. I'm definitely not marketing this as an over Unity device, at least not yet, until we can confirm that it actually is doing what it's apparently doing. But all flags are up. All the indicators of over Unity are there. The system's humming. It's producing extreme amounts of voltage while apparently maintaining the current. It's extraordinary. It's an extraordinary system for sure. And I wouldn't be here. I honest to God would not be here today if it wasn't for my analysis of capitalism in my study of Marxism. And I say that very seriously because it's very important to me. It's a very big staple in who I am today. Discovering that, the system that we have ensures the conditions of its own existence, whether it's the actors, are participants or unwilling or not, whether they're aware of it, the system ensures the conditions of its own existence. And it does that by ensuring that we don't know the true definition of itself, right? The true definition of capitalism is wrong, in my opinion. There's multiple definitions, yeah, and they're all important in their own right, but the most important one is the one that says that capitalism isn't a system of free markets or private property. We've had private property and markets in economic systems many, many times and all throughout history. What's unique and how you define something is how it's unique from other things, right? What's unique about capitalism is the way labor is organized, with a small group or single individual at the top in control of a large group who has no control. And that coupled with the private ownership of tradable shares of stock, that is capitalism. That's it in a nutshell. And that, in my opinion, describes it better than free markets and private property, whatever the hell that means. Kind of, leaves it open to interpretation, in my opinion, where the other definition that I just gave you kind of nails it on the head and makes it very specific of what it is compared to what it isn't. All right. You were until they raised the minimum wage and then they cut the stock options for employees. See, you don't get something without them taking something. They always got to take something because the system is predicated on them maximizing profit, right? You got to, how do you maximize profit? You increase the difference between labor input and wage. That's it. It's an internal contradiction. You have one group of people, the business owners, trying to increase the difference between how much you work and how much you get paid, right? They're trying to increase that difference, and the worker is trying to decrease that difference. They want to get paid for what they're worth, obviously. They don't want to increase that difference. They don't want to work, and get paid less. Are you kidding me? No. That's an internal contradiction. That's something that's unstable. It causes instability, and we have to pay attention to it. Marx called it over 100 years ago. If we don't want to listen to him, then, I can't really help you at that point. It's like plugging your ears and saying, nah, I don't hear you. All right, I'm going to load a video up real quick because I want to show you right before, because we're going to get ready to end the stream maybe in like 10-15 minutes. Close it out at, a good 3-hour mark. We went on along today, and I covered a lot of stuff. I just want to close it with the final discovery of the high voltage being induced wirelessly with the dual thief setup, which is surprising. It surprised the hell out of me. And we'll first watch the Wattman reduction video because I love that video, which shows the green machine and its reduction of input requirement for the system, which is absolutely extraordinary. And then we'll watch the dual thief setup and we'll close it out with just some closing comments on that. Yeah, I mean, GameStop, you know, the workers played the game, and they, you know, they thought they rigged the game 100%, but no, you know, like it's a gamble. The stock market is a gamble, but as we've seen, you know, a CEO, a powerful CEO like Elon Musk can go out and say something like, oh, we just had a fat contract go through, guaranteed, and he could have nothing behind it, absolutely, but it can make the stock market go nuts. He can manipulate the stock market with his words because he's put up on a pedestal, because people treat him like he's a god, because he's exploited people the most. Get that. Come on. You were fancy enough to make a lot of money because you exploited your workers. He once fired somebody for taking their 30-minute lunch. Are you kidding me? What a disgusting human being. You're going to fire somebody for taking their 30-minute lunch? I'll kick you in the balls. I really would. If I was working for Elon Musk and he fired me for taking my 30-minute lunch, I would have kicked him in the tiny testicles he has and probably punched him in the face. You know why? Because that is absolutely disgusting, privileged behavior. That's like a master telling the slave to get back to work. Go fuck yourself. Right, I think it's this one. Oh, I might have an extra video. Yeah, we'll close out with a couple of videos. Okay, so we'll do the efficiency gains. I want to show you guys, if you haven't seen this, this is very cool. We're going to put that up here. All right, everybody, here's something really cool. We have the stereo method hooked up right now. Okay, 10 volts from our power supply at 140 milliamps, okay? We're gonna spin this little neodymium magnet. I can make you a moderator if you want to post a link, network. Okay. Give me 1 second. Oh, it's not going to show it. Oh, you got to show it. There we go. Okay. So, 7.3 because we don't have it on. We're going to turn it up. Check this out. Here, let me take the... I'm going to take the magnet out first. Okay, we're going to turn it on. I'm turning it up. Hey, Taryn, how you doing, guy? Look at what's up, everybody? Good to have you guys here. 24 watts. Okay. Now watch this. Yeah, Merry Christmas, guys. Merry Christmas. We're gonna put the I'm gonna go smoke my Christmas trees. Spin it up. Increase the frequency. Check this out. Wow. And then it goes back up, 24. We saved 10 watts of power by spinning this thing. Holy crap. Happy holidays, Taryn. I hope you're having a good evening, man. All right, everybody. So yeah, we saved 10 watts in this video, but something that was very extraordinary when I went live a few days later, we increased the power input So we got it to 46 watts requirement on the input, with the Wattman registered 46. Then we spun the sphere and got that down to 16. So that's a 30 watt reduction. That is incredible. I don't have words for that. That blew my mind. Okay, I was not expecting that. Well, to be honest, these videos, I was not expecting any of this to happen. So, every step of the way, this stuff blows my mind. And I can't believe it's been suppressed for so long. It needs to get out. It's time. It's time. You know, and we're going to start selling these coils and getting them out to you guys and having you guys experiment with them and test them and have, you know, like have your own spin on the Lightning Thief. You know, it's going to be moddable. You'll upgrade it, mod it, you know, show us what you got type of thing. You know, what can you do with it? It's going to be exciting to see all you guys and what you're capable of doing with the Lightning Thief and all these systems that we're going to be developing for you. I'm really excited. The Coil Kits Lab Shop is officially off the ground. We have a lot of just stuff that I can't even tell you that's in the works regarding product lineups that are all going to be affordable. They're all going to be, you know, as close to cost as I could possibly make them, because I want this technology in more hands. The more hands that it's in, the safer we all are in exposing the suppression. Yeah. So it's going to be really cool. I'm really excited. We got to start off small. So the Lightning Thief will make a good starter. You know, get it out there to people to test with and to see what, you know, what they can do with it. Okay, so this was the micro vortex coil. Michelle's micro coil. I don't have the interference pattern on this one. I didn't have enough wire. I do have enough for one now. I just haven't had time to wind it. Might do that this week. But this one just has one wind pattern, doesn't have the interference. So I'm demonstrating how weak it is compared to having an interference pattern. And that's what we're going to be showing in the coming weeks. Or one of the things that we're going to be demonstrating, the comparison between, you know, one wind and the two wind interference pattern, specifically how efficient it is, you know, how well it drives that neodymium sphere. But this was really weird. I wasn't expecting this to happen. This video is called The Music of the Spheres. Okay, I wanted to share something very, very, very... Taryn says, did you use the TT Brown potential lofting material and the static ion wind in reverse, so negative on the top and positive on the bottom to make material take off? No, so I actually haven't been experimenting with anti-gravity at this moment. I want to just focus on, like, renewable energy and propulsion. I'm not really ready to delve into the anti-gravitics aspect. Honestly, it's not really a comfort zone for me at the moment. I want to get there eventually maybe, but right now I just want to focus on getting these systems really efficient. You know, so we have some kind of like money-saving devices for you guys and myself. But yeah, that would be fun to experiment with, Taryn. I don't know, maybe you and I can get together and do some lab work on that in the future. But that sounds fun. I'm always down to learn more about anti-gravitics. I'm not there yet. And to be honest, I'm not comfortable with myself experimenting with that kind of thing until I learn a little bit more. Monopole potential. Yeah, so the monopole in this is really has a lot of potential in driving the rotary. That's really what it's good for. You pulse that monopole, and what we've seen is the monopole only happens in my coils at least at specific frequencies. So you'll see at like 17 to 20 hertz, you'll produce a monopole in the Mark I. But at other frequency ranges, it'll be, you know, like a double pole, but it'll be like, you know, north, 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 and then maybe a south. You know, it's really weird. It's not north, south, like an even. You'll see some of that at some ranges, but it's really weird. It's really weird what it does. It's like at specific frequency ranges, maybe like octaves, harmonic octaves of its resonance range, it just snaps into the monopole. And I think it's going to be really good for driving that rotary. Very weird. But look at this. This is weird. We have the micro vortex coil without the interference pattern. These are soldered, so everything is good to go. 17.9 volts going into the 18 max volt board. Out for a second, but listen, the sound's still going. Where is that coming? It's coming from the coil. It's still making the noise. And we did manage to get the watt and input reduced down 1 watt, but it was very slight. It was like flipping, you know, it was like 0.7, 0.6, 0.7, 0.6 flipping. You could tell it wanted to go down. If we spun it for longer, it might have been stable, but it wasn't a lot. It was no like 30 watt reduction like we saw with the Mark I, which was absolutely insane. Yeah, it's yeah, the cricket coil. I know it's chirping, right? It's chirping, and it's like it's not coming from like okay, so very you see here, I don't know if you can see it. Right here, down here, that's the green machine device. That's got the stereo amp board in it, right here on the bottom. So that wasn't making the sound. I put my ear up to it. I put the speaker up to it, you know, the microphone for the camera. I didn't hear anything. I heard it when I put it up to the coil. I'm like, what? The Mark I doesn't do that. No, sir, it doesn't do that. If anything, it'll make the power supply hum. Yeah, like I've heard it hum in resonance. You know, like with the Lightning Thief, it hums the Jewel Thief circuit. You know, it sings to you. I've never heard it come out of the fucking coil. That's new to me. That is new to me. That blew my mind. I was like, what the F is the cricket coil, man? Chirp, chirp. Marks versus Mrs. Rap battle. Yeah, I'll check that out after the stream. That sounds fun. I appreciate that, network. That's funny. We have one more video I want to show you. Oh no. I want to show you. So we got the micro Mark I replica, Christmas Mark tree coils, Christmas coil, and the Fireball coil down here. What we have here, I like to call the Leaning Tower of Coils. Okay, so another quick update. Here is the Dual Thief. Okay, so I believe this is a members only video. Yes, so you are going to get an exclusive look, guys, at my members only video that I posted a couple days ago. This is the update that I was very shocked at. And you'll get these updates first. You know, obviously I release them on my live streams and stuff for you. If you guys, you know, tune in, you'll find them in the live streams. But if you want first dibs on these breaking new research data points and things that are happening with the coil in my research, definitely, if you can afford it, become a member, because it really does help out with funding for further testing and you know, quite frankly, the materials and the lab equipment gets expensive. But with that said, you're going to get an exclusive look at a members only video, because I love you guys and it's Christmas. Well, for about 42 more minutes anyways. Okay, so another quick update. Here is the Dual Thief setup. 2 Lightning Thieves hooked up to each their own coil. And the load is a 9-watt LED. Okay, so we have, this one is the only one hooked up to the battery, right here. So this is hooked up to the battery. This one isn't hooked up to anything but the coil. So you can see where the battery is usually hooked up, these 2 wires connected together to the battery terminal. That's disconnected completely. We just have the yellow and green wires coming into the
It's not green, it's black.
secondary
Sorry,
lightning
it was the
teeth.
yellow and black
Now
wires.
check this out. Watch this. All right, it's already plugged in, but this one's in tune. This one isn't. And you can kind of just push it in tune. See? Turns on. And it's staying on all the way up. So that's very interesting.
Very stable pickup, wireless
weird.
pickup. So
Now,
you don't
it's
have
not
to
really
be
changing in brightness,
specifically
maybe
in that
slightly,
small tuning
with two
spot.
of them compared to one. But again, we turn this off. We unplug this one. Okay, it's on. So that doesn't really turn on except for that one little tiny range. Okay, when we have this plugged in, it just needs a little bit, like right here, and then it turns on all the way, this huge range. The secondary is on with high voltage indicated by this neon. Part 2 to this video, when we securely connect the connection to the secondary, so we have both of them hooked up now to the battery, this is what happens. This is our tuned range, our resonance range right here, and we get really bright, okay? And outside that, on our secondary, we go back to a little bit less than what we would with one. Again, because we're draining a little bit of power with the secondary. Inside, wow, that is nice. Way brighter than I've seen it ever with these. Very nice.
Yes, nice indeed. That was very cool to see. I was not expecting that. Again, that's 120 volt breakdown voltage for that green neon lamp, and that's not hooked up to the battery. That was being excited through wireless induction. So the coil was sitting on top of that. The primary coil was on top of the secondary coil. The primary coil is hooked up to a lightning thief hooked up to the battery. The secondary coil is not hooked up to the battery. It's just hooked up to the lightning thief, which is taking that wireless energy that's coming into the pickup coil, and it's exciting it and resonating it just without any source input power. It's incredible. And it's exciting that 120 volt neon lamp with just wireless. So in this, the reason why this is very significant, guys, because if you've watched my live streams, and specifically me doing the wireless induction tests, it was very difficult to get anything significant out of it. Like you could light like a little small one, LED from an Arduino kit. Yeah, big deal. It was good for tuning, right? But what practically can you do with that? It's just one LED. I wasn't getting a lot of voltage or whatever, or current. But now with the lightning thief, it's taking that little bit that's picking up and it's resonating it and maximizing it by creating that 0 point again with the secondary coil. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. So we haven't measured the current and the voltage and all that. I need to do the measurements for the wireless pickup of the secondary and the dual thief setup, but it's looking like it's freaking great. It's looking like we might have more than one way to set up this baby. And with that said, we are over our 3-hour mark. I really appreciate you guys for tuning in and listening to me babble about Marxism and free energy for 3 hours long. I know it was a long undertaking, but I appreciate you guys, and I love all the support, and love coming my way is coming back at you. So with that, I just want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas, and if I don't see you, a Happy New Year. Yes, thank you, Network Metatron. I will see you guys for, I'll probably see you for Free Energy Fridays. So I'm not positive I'm going to be able to make it, but I'm going to try. So, all right, guys, have a good night. Peace.